I would like to call to order the February 24th, 2026 Historic Preservation Board meeting. May we please begin with a roll call?
Caleb R.W. Locks. Here. Peggy Marker.
Present.
Kyle Waters.
Here.
Gabriel Jaroslavsky.
Here.
Kristen Kellogg.
Here.
James Murphy.
Here.
Jeff Sheldon.
Here.
Gerald Buxbaum.
Here.
And Katie Jacob.
Here.
We will now move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. Does staff have any changes to the agenda as presented?
Good evening. Jordan Hodges, City Historic Preservation Planner for the record. Chair, we have 3 items listed as continued to the March meeting on the agenda. Those are going to be items 7.1, 7.2, and 7.7. We were also just notified by the applicant at item 7.6, which is 410 49th Street. They have requested a continuance to the March meeting.
Thank you.
I move the board to approve tonight's agenda with the changes as discussed by staff.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We now move on to the minutes for the January 27th meeting for 2026. Are there any changes to the minutes as presented in your packet?
I move the board to approve the meeting minutes of last month's meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We'll now move on to the report of the city's historic preservation planner.
Thank you. Just a few items before we start tonight. As a reminder, per the HPB bylaws, March serves as our annual organizational meeting. So at the end of next month's meeting, we will do the election of officers. Secondly, resubmittal dates. So if you have a project tonight and it is continued to the next meeting, if you would like to present at the March 24th, 2026 meeting, you will need to submit by March 4th, 2026 at noon. If you would like to proceed to the April 28th, 2026 meeting, you will need to submit by March 10th, 2026 by 5 p.m. And then the last item, as noted on your agenda, the city has a brief presentation regarding proposed updates to the downtown master plan that will have an effect on a historic district. So I'll turn the floor over to Claudia Ibivan, who is our city urban designer.
He's tall. Good evening, everyone. I'm Claudia Ibivan, city urban designer. And as Jordan mentioned, I'm here to present you what I hopefully it will be brief, but maybe a little bit more than brief, the DMP update, which is the Downtown Master Plan Update Project, as we call it. So the city has hired Siskovich since the beginning of last year to work on the Downtown Master Plan and what updates can happen to really see what the downtown can look like in the next 10 to 20 years. And of course, in this process, Siskovich has looked into the Northwest Neighborhood District, which is one of the districts that usually any type of new development comes in front of you. So for the purposes of this presentation, I'm really going to focus only in the Northwest District and what the potential changes may be. Very briefly, later on, Siskovich may be actually coming in front of you for any type of approval when it comes to changing the regulations in the Northwest District. Before I go into the recommendations, I really want to share with you some information related to the existing conditions of the neighborhood and what Siskovich has found in the neighborhood. One of them being that there's not a lot of investment in this neighborhood, and over the many years we have not seen new construction. Very minimal. You have seen some of the new construction that is happening in this neighborhood, but not as intended when they actually came in 2007, changing some of the policies to really enable a little more investment in this neighborhood. There's also, we see development happening in other areas of the downtown, so there's also this pressure that comes into this neighborhood, which is mainly residential and is a historic and has a lot of community richness that has been, in a way, concerns that are related to gentrification. And obviously, the action. Right now, Siskovich is working on making some changes to the overall downtown master plan regulations, but also taking this opportunity to see what can be changed in this neighborhood to enable more of this investment. Some of the existing conditions that they have found is, well, as you know, this is a historic neighborhood. There are some cultural institutions in this neighborhood, and it's a very walkable neighborhood. You can actually walk from here all the way to the train stations. You can walk from here to Clematis Street. You can walk to the waterfront, right? It really has many other places that they can go to, and obviously the amenities that you have inside, which may be a church, or maybe the Sunset Lounge, or maybe the Park's Heart and Soul. Some of the data that they gather is, again, there's like minimal new construction, there is definitely an aging infrastructure, and there's also many vacant and underused land. They also have found that any of the people that live in the neighborhood, most of half are actually rental, right? They are renting instead of owning. And what the needs are is really delivering more housing. And by delivering more housing, we'll also improve the safety of the neighborhood. It will also need a little bit more commercial, especially in those historic corridors that have been historically commercial, just like Rosemary and Tamarind. And also support the citywide equity goals, which will be affordable housing. And again, try to have a way to improve the infrastructure that we have in this neighborhood. I do want to point out, just as we talk about the Northwest District, in the downtown, the Northwest District is what is composed here, if you can see in the map, everything that is inside in the blue line. That is the Northwest District. But the actual historic district is everything that is shaded in red. So in the following maps that I will show you, you will see these two boundaries. And what, again, comes in front of you is everything that is inside of that shaded area. So in terms of what we have on the district, we have a lot of vacant land. We have over 20% of parcels that are currently vacant, and some might be private and some might be public. We also have some other areas, other institutions, like I mentioned, that are religious, just like churches. And we also have the CRA involved in this particular development and also has some initiatives to support the preservation of some of these buildings. Within this historic boundary, we see that over 60% is actually the land from the entire neighborhood. And within this boundary, we see that we do have some contributing sites, and we do see some non-contributing sites. So in terms of opportunity, we're looking at vacant land where infill can happen. We're also looking at how to protect those contributing structures, of course, and we also are looking at how to redevelop some of the actual existing buildings that we have on site. What the neighborhood looks like right now. This is a mainly residential neighborhood, but we actually see that it has single-family units, but also has multifamily units, multifamily buildings. We see that 20% of the buildings that we have are single-family, but we also see 25% that are multifamily. All of them are very low scale. They are 2 to 3 stories. So in terms of the process that Siskovich has been following through, they have been engaging with many stakeholders, one of them being the community residents and business owners, or even people that, rent there, not really an owner. They have been going through the many different meetings that CRA is hosting, but they're also having some other meetings or events that have been attending to, one, provide information about the process that this entails, but also about gathering feedback from the community of what they want to see their neighborhood to look like in the future. So what they have heard from community, from all these different meetings, is these 4 things. One of them is to maintain the neighborhood character and the historic identity of this area. and also to provide affordable housing options, and of course, improve street trees and open space, and expand home ownership opportunities. So the actual downtown master plan regulations were only focusing on regulating the private land. And in terms of home ownership opportunities and affordable housing, that is also a conversation or a kind of collaboration that will happen with the CRA and also with the housing and community development department here in the city. So in terms of maintaining the neighborhood character and the historic identity, what the strategies are is really to see where they can actually fit more homes, but by keeping that low scale of the actual neighborhoods. It's also trying to protect those historic structures, and any new development make it compatible to those historic structures and the historic character of the neighborhood. And focusing investment again in those vacant lands that we have, and also in the non-historic lots. So here you can actually see the Northwest neighborhood. And what I'm actually just pointing out here on your left, you have the existing height that is allowed today. You will see that no more than 3 stories is allowed basically between Tamarind and Rosemary. And outside of that, you will have some areas that you will allow. We are currently allowing 4, 5, and 8 stories. The recommendation is to keep that core, or that between Tamarind and Rosemary, mainly 3 stories and no more. This is also feedback that was received from the community. And really focusing in target areas where height can be slightly increased, and like you can actually see in Palm Beach Lakes on the east and west side within the rail tracks. And you also see some additional changes along Rosemary and Tamarind, a little to the east and west, meaning from Tamarind to the actual east, a little block, and is also Rosemary to the west, also a little bit of changes. But again, the main thing to gather from this is really that no more than 3 stories will be recommended for this area. This is really looking at what we have right now. And again, this is explained with more detail. And what I do want to point out is the actual dwelling units that are allowed in the district, which is right now in the main core 14 dwelling units. And in the edges, it will be 20 dwelling units. But what I want to show you is what will be the proposed. So right now, the existing development rights will stay as they are. And whatever they will be proposing, it will be related to an incentive program. And that incentive program will slightly change, again, no more than 3 stories in the core, but in some target areas, instead of 4, will be changed to 5. And instead of 2, it will be a change to 3 stories. And when I'm talking about the difference between the 2 stories and the 3 stories, it will be height right now at 2 is 34 feet. The 3 stories will be 36 feet. So it's only 4 feet in difference. And instead of the density, we are going to allow a little bit more density. As you can see right now, the density in the core in the main area is 14 dwelling units, as I discussed. The proposed is to increase that to 21 dwelling units. So in the typical lot that we have here in the Northwest District, we have a lot that is 50 by 150 feet. That would be 7,500 square feet. By going into the 14 dwelling units, you will be allowed right now to have 2 units in that side. By the proposed recommendation of 21, you will be allowed to have 3 units on site. It will be just an additional unit. So again, this is just to show that the character and the scale of the neighborhood will be considered in the recommendations, and that the core will basically stay at no more than 3 stories. And in terms of the housing typology, Syscobich has been looking into what kind of development will come into this area. So in the core, in the areas that I have shown that is no more than 3 stories, we will see single family coming in. We will see courtyards or duplexes, again, with the maximum height of 2 stories. And as you can see here on the map, this is the area that we're looking at, the core. When it comes to the transition, meaning between the edge and the core, we will see walk-ups or townhouses or 4 duplexes that might be 3 stories, and in some areas it will be 4 stories. And again, this is also to enable a little bit more commercial use in the ground floor and have residential use in the top. And on the edges, we will have walk-up units, multifamily, and townhomes. So as you can see here in one of the images, we actually have an existing project that is under construction right now that is in the corner of 3rd Street and Rosemary. This is by right, and it's not changing with the recommendations. The other places that we are changing from 4 to 5 stories is, again, those edges that we have in Palm Beach Lakes and the rail tracks in the northeast and northwest. In terms of providing affordable housing options, just to say that affordability will be enabled by having more of these options for small-scale development, and also enabling more a little bit of the reinvestment in the neighborhood, while we protect the character and the historic structures in the neighborhood too. In terms of improving the street trees and front yards, the regulations are being carefully looked at to see how we can better design some of this development. The regulations will try to encourage to provide direct entries to these residential units from the street, to have more gardens, to have more courtyards, to have more porches, and really have all the parking on the back of the actual development. If it is accessible via an alley, encourage that access to be through the alley, or minimize the actual driveways that are in front of the actual street. And as of right now, this is all the information that I have for you. But yet again, more details will come in front of you for actual recommendation of approval. Thank you. Let me know if you have questions.
Thank you. I did just want to look at the townhome slide that you had for a moment. With the preservation planners as chair, we had a call with the team that is working to put this together. And I just wanted to mention that this was one of the items that came up, this transition with the townhomes. And one comment that our preservation planner, Mr. Hodges, made was to make sure that for the townhomes that there's a jog in the facade so it doesn't just feel like a flat plane going across it. So in terms of the overall massing and almost a rhythm of solids to voids, to have that really emphasized when it comes to this type of building typology.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questions for staff? Thank you. Jordan, did you have any other items? Did you have any other items, or you're wrapped up? Okay. We'll now move into remarks by the chairperson. The matters before this evening are quasi-judicial in nature, which means that we base our decisions based on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. We ask that you please keep this in mind when making your comments. For each of the cases on tonight's agenda, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present. 15 minutes will be allotted for cases involving demolition. Following the applicant's presentation, staff will present. We will then open the floor to public comment, which will be limited to 3 minutes per person. If you are planning to speak during public comment, please be sure to fill out a comment card, which is outside of the chambers and looks like this, and turn it into our board secretary. After public comment, the applicant is allowed a rebuttal, which will then be followed by executive session, where we will render our decision. To lead into this, we as board members will let you know if we've had conversations outside of this meeting, and we'll move into the declaration of ex parte communications. Caleb, will you start us off with ex parte?
None. Oh, sorry. Sorry, as all matters on tonight's agenda, I have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you.
As to all matters on tonight's agenda, as previously mentioned last month, on item 7.3 and 7.7, I did have ex parte communications, but they will not impact my ability to make a decision. All others, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on tonight's agenda, I, Kyle Waters, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record. Thank you.
As to all matters in tonight's agenda, I, Gabe Jaroslavsky, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, and have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on tonight's agenda, I, Kristen Kellogg, have discussed them with city staff, but can make my decisions based on the evidence presented. I have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, and have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on tonight's February 24th, 2026 Historic Preservation Board meeting, I, James Murphy, have had ex parte communications with project architect Mr. Roger Jansen via email regarding item 7.3, 501 Claremore Drive. He asked me to review the proposed revisions and wondered if a Zoom call would be required. I provided initial comments, and we did not have a Zoom exchange. As to all the other matters, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on this evening's agenda, I, Jeff Sheldon, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters before our board this evening, I, Gerald Bucksbaum, have not had ex parte communications, received written communications, conducted an investigation, made a site visit, nor received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matters on all items for the agenda for the February 24th meeting, I, Katie Jacob, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted investigations, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions, and I request that all these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you. And Jordan, we did receive 3 emails as a board, correct, in relation to 501 Claremore Drive that were public record? We'll now move into the swearing of the speakers. If you plan on speaking this evening, please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
We have one item on tonight's consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move the board to approve consent item 6.1 HPB 26-08.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. If you are case HPB 26-08 for 823 Claremore Drive, you are approved. Our first case this evening on continued business is 501 Claremore Drive.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening. Roger Jansen, Daily Jansen Architects. Here tonight to present to you the revisions that we've made since our last initial presentation to you. So thanks again for your comments. They were all very valid, helpful comments, and I would like to just simply move to those without revisiting the entire project, if that's okay with the board. The first slide here, and I'll go to some larger scale individual ones, shows the difference of the main comments that were discussed in terms of some of the building massing components. The lower slide is the previous one that you saw where the cursor is, and we had a rather large volume at each of the 3 residential components on the second floor. So what we decided to do was take away that 2-story volume and reduce it. So now the parapet on the upper level is 24 to 30 inches above the parapet of the main building, which greatly reduces the mass at the midsections of each facade. In addition, we were asked to study some of the detailing, and I will show you that also in the elevations, but we added some more of the fluted scallop components on the parapets, introduced some breeze blocks at the parapet railing walls on the roof terrace components to further add detail to the building. That was some of the comments from some of the board members at the last meeting. The plan, and these are line drawings, are the same. So above you can see what is our proposed current level with just the slightly raised parapet at the midsection versus below where we had the large 2-story volume at the center living units of the residences on the second level. We did add some fenestration on the ground level, which was discussed at the meeting, versus the 2 blank wall sections on the ground level. On the east facade, the same on the massing at the second story. The upper one is what we're proposing with just the slight step up at the midsection. And then again, the same on the north elevation, was just reducing the 2-story volume at the midsection. On the west side, we did the same components. There was some discussion with Mr. Murphy about adding some windows, so which we did here at the ground level. We had 2 opportunities to add some fenestration at the component here where the cursor is, and then on the right side of the ground level as well, which is facing the parking lot. So again, this is the principal elevation on Claremore with some of the components that I just described. We got away from the stencil cutouts on the railings, went back to a simple horizontal tube components on the balcony on the residence. And then that's the building without the landscaping. And then the same on the east facade on the railroad track side was, again, the reduction of the massing at the center of the composition, still having a little bit of emphasis at the doors on those residences with a transom above the doors. And that's it again without the landscaping. The other way to describe some of the changes, as you can see from this aerial, and I'll show you on the floor plan, is now we just have a raised section at the parapets for the residential living areas to create a little more volume in the living rooms, and the access is internalized back, flanking the core of the atrium at the building, so we'll still have access to each of the private roof terraces for each residence. We were able to meet with the neighborhood, and we expressed and explained the project to the Flamingo Park Neighborhood Association, which I think the meeting went well. No major determinations other than we made the presentation, explained to them. We did also revisit the building to the north, which is approved by this board years ago as part of the Green School property, and did some comparisons, and we're far below this in height and volume by a huge magnitude. Whether this will be built or not, we don't know, but it is our immediate neighbor to the north. And then let me just one last component on the plans. We also, in the floor plan, we're able to take the service bay and move it to the rear of the property, which was a recommendation of yours, which does work out well. And then we are adding the windows on the ground level at 2 of the office spaces to the parking lot side. We were able to shift the building slightly to the east, but we're still holding it off of that easterly property line by approximately 4 feet. So on the upper level that I was describing, if you see these dark walled spaces around the atrium, that will provide the vertical circulation to each of the 4 roof decks on the corners for the residential units. And that kind of sums it up. I think all the changes we feel are very positive for the building. If you have any specific comments or questions other than that, I will conclude my presentation and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan Hodges, for the record. I will do something similar and predominantly go over the changes that were made between January and February. Again, this is a multi-part application. One, the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the little garage structure that's on site, the construction of the new mixed-use development containing both residential and office space, and then 3 variances, all contained within the parking lot and due to the predominantly to landscape requirements for parking stalls. Again, this is that small existing garage that's on site. It is a non-contributing resource within the Flamingo Park District. And just kind of as a reminder, this parcel lies at the eastern terminus of the district. Again, this is the within the railroad transition district. You can see the parcel itself with the little star there. And again, this is intended to function as kind of a buffer between the SF14C2 residential zoning to the west, which is the Flamingo Park residential neighborhood, and the general commercial zone located to the east, which lines the Dixie Highway corridor, which allows more intense commercial uses. Again, at the proposed site plan, the building was shifted a little bit to the east, as Roger said, but everything else remains pretty similar. The parking lot is located to the west, which creates over a 70-foot setback from the building between the west property line. But the parking lot does contain a slide gate 2 spaces in. And the building is currently proposed to be fenced with a vinyl privacy fence. But as for the zoning data table, the site is compliant with the underlying zoning for the RTD district. Like I said, there are 3 variances associated with the project. You'll see highlighted in green there, those are for the terminal landscape islands that are required kind of at the end of a row of parking. Those are required to be 8 feet in width, but the applicant is requesting just one, the one on the east side there at the front, to be 7.2 feet in width in lieu of the 8. That's generally attributed to how the parking has to be oriented to the site, kind of front to back, and the required number of spaces. Variance number 2 is for the interior landscape island, and that is in blue. Those are required, I believe, every 8 or 10 parking spaces to kind of break up rows of parking. Those are also required at 8 feet in width, and the applicant is proposing 3 foot wide. And that is also where the slide gate is located. So those will be a variance for 5 feet. Oh, excuse me. And then variance number 3 is for the required loading zone. Once you cross a certain square footage threshold, it kind of bumps you up to the largest loading space. So the applicants are proposing an 8.5 by 18 loading space, whereas the required is 10 by 25. And there is, if you look kind of directly across the drive aisle, there is a turnaround area for the loading zone. Okay, to get into the elevation, and Roger did a nice job explaining it, staff's initial concerns with the project was kind of the presence of that center story element, the extra height, the mass and scale that it added. So kind of as Roger explained, those areas were lowered and the access were pulled back to kind of encompass the courtyard. So at least from a perspective from Claremore, they're probably not going to be visible. And then there was additional fenestration added to the ground floor, the railing modifications, and then a row of transoms placed above the balcony doors, which adds a nice hierarchy to that center section. Again, what was proposed in January, and the current proposal shown without landscaping. Again, the streetscape along Claremore. East elevation as it is currently proposed. If you'll remember from the January meeting, the egress stairs for the upstairs used to be to the back of the building. It is now proposed on the east side. Again, this was the rendering from January and the current rendering for February with the flamingo mural. Again, the west, currently proposed. The gate system was initially just, that allows you into the breezeway, was originally just kind of a louvered system, and now there's some nice kind of deco geometric detailing provided in that. And of course, the garage space to the interior space has been relocated to the back of the building, which I believe was a recommendation at January. Again, west rendering from January, and the current for February. And you can see those spaces on the rooftop that have been massaged. And then the currently proposed rear elevation, January and February renderings. So as for the variance criteria, staff did find the applicant to be in compliance with all three of the variances. We did discuss those quite a bit at the January meeting. If you all would like further explanation on those or for me to go through the criteria, I'm happy to do that. As far as the criteria for new construction, staff, like I said, initially had the two underlined portions, building height, scale, bulk mass, and volume. We found conflicts with those at the January meeting. Due to the revisions, we now believe that the project complies with the intent of the additional criteria. Staff is recommending approval with conditions for the certificate of appropriateness, including 6 conditions of approval. Again, happy to go through those. And is recommending approval for the landscape terminal island variances and the loading space variance. And as the chair mentioned earlier, we did receive 3 pieces of public comment that were received early enough to be included as attachments in the staff report. We also received additional comments that were sent via email to all board members. I also have a hard copy of those if anyone would like to look at them. But that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Is the applicant in agreement with the conditions of approval? Yeah.
I have a question for you, Jordan. Mm-hmm. The landscape islands, what is preventing them from compliance?
Sure.
Is it, what I mean by that is, if they were to supply the landscape island, it would just push the parking back 5 additional feet towards the north. Is there some form of easement or a setback that prevents them from doing that?
So they're required to maintain a 5-foot landscape buffer around the perimeter, the exterior perimeter of the parking lot. So when you organize the amount of required parking, this is what we've been, and what the applicant and what staff has come up with as the best alternative with how much room is there kind of front to back. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
The 5-foot buffer is required for discordant uses or discordant zoning or properties in general, meaning the property to the north is also transect zoning, so it has a similar use, and the buffer would arguably not be that necessary as opposed to if the north was to a single family home.
Right. I believe that's correct, that it's required along the front, the west, and the rear elevation, or rear property lines.
Thank you.
Does this meet the minimum required parking for these? Like, I don't know how many parking spaces there are. Like 18. 20?
I believe it is. They're required at 23, but that was able to come down to 21 with a shared parking agreement.
Okay.
Between the tenants of the building.
Okay.
And these variances are helping keep parking out of that front area in front of the building, right? Which
Yes.
was one of the original things that was explored.
Yeah, so it was originally, there were back-out spaces that were kind of looked at. And also for this size of property in the RTD, you can only have one vehicle entry and exit. So it almost kind of compels it to be in this shape of lot, a front to back lot, instead of a, side to side, in order to place the building and not have the parking in front.
Thank you. Could you also walk us through the density that's allowable versus what is proposed?
Yes, give me 1 second. Okay. So the density currently allowed, it's 14 dwelling units an acre, so they're allowed to have 7.11. They're proposing 3 for building lot coverage. They're allowed at 60%. They're currently at 38, so significantly under lot coverage. And then FAR, which governs the commercial uses, they're permitted at 0.5. And they're proposing 0.26. So there's still quite a bit of.
Right. So we're under on FAR, which governs commercial. We're under on the residential units, and we're under on the lot coverage.
Yes.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the board? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Katie.
I noticed a lot of the public comment had to do with traffic around. Is this something that this board even talks about? Just for clarification, do we take into consideration the traffic that is happening around the area, or is that a separate town problem, a city problem?
Sure. So this project went through PPRC, which is our internal plan review, where all city departments kind of get to, all city disciplines get to review, issue comments, and then a resubmittal is received. So zoning, engineering, who handles traffic, landscape, public works, kind of all the city department reviewed it. And traffic is not necessarily in the purview of the HPB, as I understand it. Would you?
That's correct.
Yes.
And that's an excellent point, Katie. Thank you. Okay, so now we will move on to public comment. Thank you. The first public comment card that I have for this case, I believe it says David Smith. If you could please come up to the podium. And if you'll just restate your name and your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes of public comment. Thank you.
David Smith, Gregory Place, West Palm Beach. And I'm familiar with Flamingo Park. I was the founding chairman of the association in 1986 when the neighborhood thought they were going to hell in a handbasket. Unfortunately, Palm Beach Lakes did go to hell in a handbasket. Grandview was next, and Flamingo Park was fearing for their preservation because the association and many things that happened in the city over the years, from 40 years ago, Flamingo Park fought back, Grandview got better, and sorry about Palm Beach Heights. Your job as preservation, I know what it is. I know that you know what it is. But the interesting thing that you brought up is the traffic issue. Over the years, and this is part of the reason why Flamingo got together, and it continues to be a problem, was the traffic. Because McCoy Toyota was starting. Cheney Brothers used to be on that street, and if you know where Cheney Brothers is located now, you know how big they are. Back then, the city fathers didn't listen to the neighbors about trucks going through neighborhoods. So the neighborhood wanted four-way stop signs, which have morphed into something even better. And those trucks were forced out of the neighborhood because they couldn't make the turn without running over the stop signs. Good for the neighborhood. But sometimes trucks would come in. And where was the enforcement? That's not your job, I understand. But it's a problem because you're going to make recommendations or approval or disapproval, whatever you're going to do to the city staff and to planning. I want you to understand the whole picture. The traffic from vendors, the traffic from the The green isn't the problem right now. Vendors, the training that's across the street, when they have events, when the restaurant used to be where green is, all the cars that would park up and down the street in Claremore, this is a problem that has occurred along Dixie Highway, east and west of the highway, as it penetrates into the historic neighborhoods, El Cid, even up in Northwood, certainly Flamingo Park and Sunshine Park. We worked very hard to put these things together. I am a former city commissioner. There were no ordinances on preservation 40 years ago. There were no preservation board 40 years ago. So I'm happy to see this, and I know progress comes. And the building doesn't look bad, but it's more traffic. And they've already backed off 2 spaces, but I think I want you to consider traffic, even though it's not your job, because we keep bringing in more cars and more trucks. And what kind of people will be living and working in this facility, we have no idea. But how do we control that traffic? And to say that it meets certain traffic standards, ask the person at 523 how that works. Please consider those thoughts before you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Janine Peterson. And again, if you'll state your name and address for the record before you begin.
Sure, Janine Peterson, 522 Claremore. We live catty corner across the street from the project.
Thank you.
I'm a third-generation Flamingo Park resident. My grandparents moved here in the 1940s. My parents were raised here, met here, and married here. My husband and I now live in the same neighborhood, one with deep family history that we're determined to protect. We support mixed-use development on this corridor, but we're asking this board to condition today's approval on 4 things. Our first ask is a current approval use limitation. This project is built on a specific assumption, ground floor office use. That is what the developer proposed, what the traffic analysis relied on, and the basis on which the staff recommended approval. RTD permits restaurants, retail, 24 other higher use trips by right. Without this condition, tenant space B could convert to any of them the day after you approve this. No new certificate of approval, no traffic study, no public notice. If the applicant's intent is truly small office space, this condition costs them nothing. They retain every right to come back and request other uses with proper analysis, proper notice, and a proper public process. Without this condition, the traffic analysis and parking configuration before you are not adequate to support an approval. Our second ask addresses the gate, its removal, or at a minimum, its relocation. The gate creates strong practical pressure for visitors, customers, residents making quick stops to use the 4 spaces most visible on the street right at the entrance to our historic neighborhood. The applicant has cited security as justification, but the protection the gate provides to residents at 501 Claremore comes directly at the expense of every neighboring residence on the rest of the block, left with all of the uncontrolled access and none of the protection. Our first choice is removal of the gate. If the board finds that difficult, we would support moving it to the rear third of the lot, leaving the front 2/3 open to all. Our third proposed condition, privacy screening and sound limits on the proposed rooftop decks. The February 8th plan introduces those decks on all 4 corners of the building. That is not a minor amenity. That is a fundamental compatibility problem. These decks place occupants at elevation with unobstructed sightlines directly into the yards and interiors of single-family homes on Claremore and Biscayne Drives. And then there is sound. Nothing in this certificate of appropriateness restricts amplified sound on those decks. 4 rooftop decks without any sound restriction in a historic residential neighborhood with no equivalent use anywhere on the block. That is a noise source without limits. We ask for privacy screening sufficient to prevent direct sightlines and prohibition on amplified sound. If these decks are truly intended as quiet residential amenity, neither condition should be objectionable. And our fourth condition, a cumulative traffic study before final site plan finalization. The concurrency statement evaluated 501 as if the block were empty, ignoring Trap House, Bednar's, Green School, Jack the Biteman warehouse, and that's the next warehouse in the development. And I'll stop.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment for this case? I have no other public comment cards. Okay, please come to the podium if you'll state your name and address for the record. And once you're done speaking, if you'll fill out one of these comment cards, that's out beyond the doors and give it to our board secretary, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Carolyn McKinnis, and I live at 830 Biscayne Drive. Thank you for the community meeting that we had last week so that the community could see the proposed building. It was very helpful, but we had two major concerns. One was the height of the building, and the other was the impact of traffic. And I feel that we, at least myself, I understand that the building does meet the criteria for the height. However, we did not know at the time that we had the meeting last week that there was a proposed deck on the top of the roof that we didn't know about. And that is concerning to me because it does have a significant impact on the privacy of the residents. The other thing that I felt we didn't get the answer to at the meeting had to do with the impact on the traffic. And so I think that's still unresolved in my mind as far as whether or not the traffic is going to impact the community. So those are my two major concerns, and I feel that hopefully you all will take that into consideration as you make your decisions. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Okay.
I do want to iterate that traffic is not a consideration of this board, and I understand there are other city boards that, are dealing with that. So unfortunately, this board cannot take that into consideration.
Thank you for the reminder, and I think that also pertains to any kind of condition relative to traffic study, correct?
Correct. Yes, all of that.
Okay. And then, Mr. Hodges, is there any, it sounds like they've been through the traffic studies that are required by the city. Is there, or the applicant, Roger, it's not in our purview, so our board cannot weigh in on it, but obviously there's a lot of community input about the traffic. I just want to understand for the people who are here today, you've been through all of the traffic studies, right? So if you can just confirm, let the neighbors know.
Yeah, that's correct. We've complied with all the conditions required by PPRC.
Okay, and if the neighbors have any concerns, maybe they can direct their concerns to you and you can try to work with them.
I think, and I'll just rebut to Ms. Pedersen's comments too. These are all, in my mind, code compliance issues. I don't think we need to tie anything to this application. If it's noise, there's noise ordinances with the city. If it's traffic, there's traffic ordinances. So I would request that it's not tied to this application, but these would be, in change of use, I think that's just implicit that if there's a change of use from office to something else, it has to go back through the proper channels with the city. So I think all of that's already covered by the city restrictions here. So, but we'll do everything we can to be good neighbors. We understand the concerns. Thank you.
Okay, well, since you're standing up there, if you want to go ahead and give your rebuttal, or if that was it, could you specifically speak to the request for a condition relative to the gate being pushed back, if you're in favor of that or not?
Well, I think we would prefer to have it where it is. It's, we have it set in so there's proper space for a car to pull in and not be sticking into the street, which was what the city requested we do. I think we do need security at night there. The gates will only be closed at nighttime. They won't be closed during the day. So we'll operate from generally 8 to 5, usually 7 to 7, but it would be closed for the residential units at nighttime.
Okay, and then can you also speak to the deck or terrace use on the top?
Again, those are for outdoor garden, just open air spaces for the residences. And again, if there's a noise issue, again, that would be something that code enforcement would comply with, but we would request that anyone using those decks be respectful to the neighborhood. Yep, simple as that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
What is the height of those guardrails?
They're 42 inches.
42 inches,
Yeah.
okay.
The deck is at 30 feet, and they go up to 33 foot 6.
Okay.
Yep.
Roger, can you stay right there? Mr. Murphy has a question for you.
Hey, Roger, thank you. There's 3 apartments in the building, correct? And each one of the apartments has a private deck area.
That's correct.
So what's the common deck area for? The one that faces west. That seems to be.
Yeah, that's just like for the office use from below to go up to the roof deck. So we have the stair and the elevator core that access that section. It's the same as the last time you saw it on the west side.
Okay.
So each of the green corners would represent there's 3 three residences on the second floor, and then a common space for the ground level office occupant. And again, it's all still the same composition about that central atrium in the middle.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I do have a question for staff relative to public comment. One of the neighboring proposed conditions speaks to restrictions of use on the first floor. Is that something that we're even able?
So as I understand that, the uses that are being proposed are by right? So I don't know how we would, if there is a mechanism to restrict a by right use, if they were to come in later.
Okay, that was my question. Okay, and you would agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Does the commercial have the same parking requirement as an office?
That they wouldn't
They wouldn't
have
be
the
able to
parking
change
They wouldn't,
requirement.
no. What I'm getting at is they wouldn't be able to, if the parking requirement for retail was higher than the parking requirement for office, which it traditionally is, which would be the mechanism of VOV preventing those other uses without coming back for a parking variance, which I don't even know if it's permissible in your town.
I don't believe we permit that.
Excellent point. Okay. Are we ready to move into executive session? Okay, it looks like it. We will move into executive session.
I can start. I think that the improvements are very good in terms of its overall improvement to a refined architecture, and the removal of some of the embellishments and the focus on other more tectonic embellishments, like in the frieze, versus just the railing design is appreciated. I appreciate the attempt to put more eyes on the street for nighttime use, particularly when Roger's overworking his staff and they have to go to the parking lot at night. So I'm glad that there was some effort to make some fenestration along looking into the parking lot. I think that's important. I wish that you actually studied increasing that. Our previous meeting removed discussion on the light poles from our purview, I understand, in terms of the parking lot. That was handled at P-Plat or whatever. But I find the project generally, I'm in support of the project as presented.
Agreed. I like the changes. I like the additional windows. I think he's clearly well within his rights and is using a nominal amount of space compared to what he could.
Peg, is your microphone on?
You heard me right?
You're in support.
Yeah.
So don't forget, you've got demolition and then the variance.
Thank you. And Mr. Murphy, you were asking about the terraces on the top and the use for those. Our board doesn't grant a lot of approvals for terraces, but we also don't have a lot of projects that come in this railroad transition district. Do you find that it's compatible, the terrace uses, based on the positioning of it?
I think that the effort to reduce the visible massing from the penthouse level has been reduced in this latest effort. I was just questioning the location of the one that would be facing the Flamingo Park neighborhood, the western one, which is the more quote-unquote public one, the office use one. That's also more open air, and there's like an outdoor kitchen. But if it's permissible by the zoning code, not exceeding the height allowance, no, I think the refined massing has reduced its impact, at least from the street.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion, I think we're ready for someone to make a motion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 25-94 in 501 Claremore Drive for demolition in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries as it pertains to demolition.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 25-94 in 501 Claremore Drive for new construction in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards for the construction for interior standards, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of the Interior standards, and the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions are the 6 conditions listed in staff report.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board grant HPV case number 25-94V, a request by Patrick Mayfield of Daily Jensen Architects PA on behalf of Rogers Jansen of Clematis 400 Properties LLC for the construction of a new mixed-use development containing residential and office uses requiring a variance from Section 94-443C3A of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted and staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that each of the criteria in Article 2, Section 94-38D6 of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations have been met. In addition, the granting of the variance is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations and consistent with the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The variance shall only apply to the proposed mixed-use development.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations and thank you. And
I have 2 more variants.
Oh, 2 more. Sorry.
I
Jumped
have a
the
lot
gun.
to read.
We only did 1 variance.
This is variant number 2 for interior landscape island dimension variance. I move that the Historic Preservation Board grant HPV case number 25-94V2, a request by Patrick Mayfield of Daily Jansen Architects PA on behalf of Roger Jansen of Clematis 400 Properties LLC for the construction of a new mixed-use development containing residential and office uses requiring a variance from Section 94-443C3B of the city zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based upon the testimony presented, along with the application submitted and staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that each of the criteria in Article 2, Section 94-38D6 of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations have been met. In addition, the granting of the variance is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, or safeguards that are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning and land development regulations and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The variance shall only apply to the proposed mixed-use development.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
And the last variance, V3, is for loading space requirement variance. I move that the Historic Preservation Board grant HPB case number 25-94V3, a request by Patrick Mayfield of Daly Jansen Architects, PA, on behalf of Roger Jansen of Clematis 400 Properties, LLC, for the construction of a new mixed-use development containing residential and office uses requiring a variance from Section 94-485P of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based upon the testimony presented, along with application submitted and staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that each of the criteria in Article 2, Section 94-38D6 of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations have been met. In addition, the granting of the variance is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning and land development regulations and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The variance shall only apply to the proposed mixed-use development. Now, yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. So now you are fully approved. Congratulations. And thank you for working with city staff and the neighborhood for this proposal. Our next case is HPB 25-89 for 212 Dyer Road. When the applicant is ready, we will have his presentation. Gabe, you really got a workout there.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Russell Versicki, architect, representing the owners of 212 Dyer Road. For an interior renovation to the first floor and the second floor addition, I presented to you last month. We received some staff comments. We made some adjustments. I'll go through those today. And just to make our way to the first slide here, you see the green card. There is a large connecting portion to the original garage. When the home was originally built, you can see that outline and its original connection, which I believe might have been a roof over area that connected to a door, or call it a portal, to the garage from the home to the garage. So those were always combined. That rear addition, so to speak, that happened in '62, I believe, was a loggia. It was always a loggia. There's stairs down to it. It was always a roof over. Someone enclosed it, and you can see that in the jalousie windows on the photos. This was non-contributing prior to the 2008 resurvey, where it was determined it was a minimal traditional. In 2004, the portico, or let's say the main entry, was relocated to the front, right where that large bay window is, flanked by the two single hungs. The next slide illustrates what has changed on the property. Chicago brick across the driveway to access the two-car garage. The portico at the front entry, the stair, the landing, the French door with side lights. That side access, which was the original entry, was converted to a single hung window. What I just want to make a mention of is that obviously we all know homes in historic districts adapt over time. This home is much larger, considerably larger than what I would consider, and I hope all of you would agree, in comparison to an affordable housing project. To me, this is quite a sizable home on a sizable 75-foot wide lot. It's pretty deep, it's expansive. Two-car garage typically doesn't speak to an affordable house, in my opinion, at least at the time of when this home was built. You'll see a few more indications of what's not original. Those are the jalousie windows that enclose that flat section of roof. So when you end up with this large massing, as this home has and has become over time, you end up with gables that surround a flat roof, right? Because you have the garage roof as a gable, you have the primary home, which was L-shaped, and then the mid portion, which is all flat roof. If I can ask you to keep that in mind as I present the addition later. We made some minor adjustments. We bumped out a left portion of the gable facing us, which would be on the east side, or the left on this plot plan as outlined in red. The square footage slightly changed because we also took another foot off to set back the second story over the garage. So you'll see that increase or the additional setback there. The demolition plan has not changed since last presented. There's no changes to the demo elevations. The proposed floor plan, there has been some adjustments made to keep or retain locations of windows that were east-facing, consistent with staff recommendation, as outlined in red dashed areas. The rear facade, we took this upon ourselves just after studying the drawings more to make a little bit better rhythm between windows and doors. As you can see, we've removed a few French doors in comparison to the prior application. Okay, the left bump out was added, as I mentioned. You're seeing it here on the second floor plan. The center bump out reduced in width. So what did we do really? We adjusted proportions to the second floor, which makes for a better read, perspective, and from streetscape or from the front sidewalk view. The roof shape also changed with respect to those proportions. Those reverse gable ends are now smaller and, let's say, secondary to the original front-facing gable. That would be at the left or easternmost side of the home, which is the bottom left on this drawing. The roof changed its shape above the garage, and again, we also set that back. These arrows indicate those locations of change. We dropped the eave height of the roof over the garage so that it distinguishes the main massing roof from the garage addition roof. We extended a gable bump out 8 inches so that the corner board can read, so that the gable is more properly pronounced. Previously, it was improperly pronounced, in my opinion. The facade continued straight while a gable ran across. Optional for the board to consider would be a break band from where was the single portion that connected at the garage. I'm okay with a 2x8 or 2x10 break band if the board agrees. This indicates the cross section, and we've taken a little bit more time to detail the eave and the siding condition where there's a cove trim. On this street, I rode by there today again after making this slide and looking on satellite view. I'd like to say this is the largest distance between homes with second floors that we are aware of on this street. The distance you see here in this cross section, this was not asked of the staff, we're doing this to better represent our project, is 146 feet 8 inches plus or minus. 30-foot wide road. This is an expansive road. It's not a small narrow street in El Cid. The second story setback being considerable. Here's the original rendering we came in with, right? The eaves of those reverse gables at the second floor kind of kissed each other, they touched. Here's the new presentation of the rendering where you see the space, just like the space you see down below. So I'd like to call this second floor addition that we're proposing a piggyback. It's no different than concepts of mimicry for historic architecture, but there's difference, right? So similar but different is the goal here. Louvered arch gable end vents are being restored on the original home. We restored some detailing. We plan to replace windows and do a two-part sill. Everything's gonna, let's say, be touched up or refined and replaced better. The gable end vents were closed in at some point because I imagine wind-driven rain made their way in. I've done a similar design for one of my other clients who's here today to support this application and make a mention of how I helped to preserve her home. At the second story addition, you'll see the slotted gable end vents, which are unlike the arch gable end vents. Intentionally, those would have hood scoops inside to prevent wind-driven rain. Here's the existing home. I think sometimes the board says it's hard to distinguish on some of our projects what's old and what's new. So I made this just for you to see the fading in from the old to the new, clearly distinguished. I've done some sketch explorations with staff consideration and comments in mind. We ran, the sketch illustrates the second floor addition over the garage as a straight running roof with paired windows. This one represents a gable that pronounces 8 inches from the facade. We like the way this looks as well. This is a side-facing view of what that looks like. So the gables were dropped a little bit, if you recall, and then we also reshaped this second floor addition roof. And we added windows to the facade on the west face, as you see. This is the rear-facing sketch with how that roof would look, with the gable kind of mimicking what's below it, the original gable of the garage at the back. This is very rough, I apologize. But the goal here is to show that there's 2 different sizes that I want the board to understand. At the front garage, the center line is different than the rear facade center line, so those roofs require an offset. It does work very well with this gable running straight, with or without the gable facing forward or front facing north. I'd love to discuss this palladial window. My client really desires this. I think of it as just an upgrade. It's less than 4 square feet in size. If we compare that to the overall massing and scale of this home, that's minute. It's not like we have palladial windows everywhere or we're doing something that's outwardly random. This street in particular has whimsical elements to it.
Okay, Russ, your time
Thank you.
is up. Thank you.
Good evening, Anthony Mendez, Historic Preservation Planner for the record, speaking as the case manager for HPB 2589. The request at 212 Dyer Road is for a second-story addition and for ad valorem pre-construction. This case was first heard at last month's HPB meeting. The subject property is in SF14C3, short for Historic Single-Family High-Density Residential Context 3, part of the El-Cid Historic District, which was locally designated in 1993 and listed in the National Register for Historic Places in 1995. Subject property is a 2,778 square foot contributing wood frame residence, and per the most recent resurvey of El-Cid in 2008, this property was deemed contributing in the minimal traditional style. And just some background context as to what that actually means. Minimal traditional architecture emerged in the late 1930s and became one of the defining house forms of the 1940s. If you look at the 3 periods of significance for El-Cid, we have Florida's real estate boom, 1914 to 1929, Florida's real estate bust, Depression recovery, 1930 to 1944, and post-World War II expansion development, that's from 1945 to 1960. This house would constitute being in that second period of significance. Sort of after you have these, a plethora of revival styles from the 1920s, so the Tudor, Colonial Revival, Mediterranean Revival, all of those come from the 1920s. As we approached the Great Depression, those types of styles became financially out of reach for a lot of homeowners. And so buyers during the Great Depression were focused more towards modesty, efficiency, and affordability. And so simplicity was essentially the key for minimal traditional structures. It's not really considered a pure or high style of architectural design, but rather a subtype of American modernism. And while it may not be evident as of the current images, I posted a more pure and quintessential version of what minimal traditional looks like. This is from the Parrington Historical Society in New York. And as I stated, the subject property as it currently stands may not appear to be minimal traditional. However, we have included the 2004 photographs. This was also in the presentations and staff reports from last month. In October of 2004, HPB did approve the removal and relocation of the primary entrance towards the side and more towards the front. They also approved a 75 square foot covered entrance porch. And while minimal traditional structures do tend to vary within this city, we look at existing characteristics of the property itself. And from there, we evaluate the proposed changes as the Secretary of Interior standards require. We do that with an understanding of what minimal traditional is and how that has impacted the historic district of El Cid. So I have included the 2004 photographs with the existing elevation drawing and what the current proposal is. I also have, under attachment 5 of the staff report, has the 2004 architectural drawings. The request, it has shifted slightly in terms of the square footage addition. The proposed square footage of the second story is now decreased from 1,835 square feet to 1,823 square feet. We have the elevation drawings from the south, east elevation drawings that demonstrate better retention of the fenestration. That was a concern from last month. West elevation drawings demonstrating the lowering of the garage and a slighter roof pitch of that garage. The floor plans having the exterior walls highlighted. And this slide shows the changes of the second floor and plan from last January to this month. The applicant has included that 8-inch step back. Site plans, there are 2 nonconformities, one for the site plan. So cumulative side yard setback has to be 20 feet. It's okay for it to exist as a nonconformity. It currently is at just above 14 feet. But per this request, any additions have to comply with our provisions. Second nonconformity is for lot coverage. And so that's noted here that there will be no change to the lot coverage. For floor area ratio, the applicant is utilizing a special exception bonus under section 9485F5, and I've extracted that here so you could read that verbatim. It says that a special exception, which in this case would be 3%, can be granted for resulting in a structure utilizing green building standards or green provisions adopted by the City Commission. While there are a wide array of what constitutes green building standards, HPB has approved elements pertinent to this bonus that include low flow water fixtures, non-VOC paint, and high energy efficiency HVAC systems. The reason why that is mentioned here is because this is a special exception that cannot be approved by staff. That has to be approved by HPB. So these are the green design notes that our applicant has included in his latest submittal package. Unfortunately, we still have concerns in this latest design iteration. We are recommending a continuance. The concerns over the retention of the fenestration on the east facade are they've been relatively resolved. We still have concerns with the scale, mass, and style of the garage addition and that central bay. So this just gives you that progression of where the application started to where we are today. Staff prefers the smaller pane paired windows that were in the January submittal, and we do see some, I believe Russell did include some iterations of that in his presentation. And if a second floor is approved over the garage this evening, staff does recommend some exploration of a simplified side gable roof that was in a preliminary sketch. We look forward to seeing what, if we could resolve something with our applicants. And then, unfortunately, the Palladian window and faux railing are not really appropriate for a minimal traditional residence. Just hearkening back to the second period of significance for El Cid, going into the 1930s, simplicity was key for a lot of minimal traditional residences. Palladian windows, though sometimes utilized in 1920s classical revival styles, were not utilized in this specific context in that second period of significance. These structures for minimal traditional are significant because of their simplistic massing and their restraint. Find that these elements could be considered conjectural, and there's no evidence to suggest that such features form part of the building's original design, and that's part of Standard 3 for the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. It says that changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or elements from other historic properties, will not be undertaken. If the board did lean towards a potential approval, we do have some conditions. They weren't in the staff report, but we did work on drafting them, both Jordan and I. And they primarily address our primary concerns. The rest of these are generally pertinent to windows. And then for 11, we did look at the new cedar shake that our applicant was proposing, if that could be switched to a weathered gray, and we are willing to work with the applicant for a resolution on that matter. Surrounding buildings, we have 3 primary ones. This is right on the edge of the El Cid Historic District. That's 220 Dyer Road, 211 Dyer Road, and 206 Dyer Road. And then after my staff report was published, we did receive public comment. This was from Jessica Julian. This is from Sunday, February 22nd at 11:27 a.m. And this was something that Jordan received. So I have hard copies if anyone would like to read the correspondence in support of 212 Dyer Road. Applicable code, since this is an existing contributing property, Secretary of Interior stands for rehabilitation, and our additional criteria for new construction and alterations. So I could pass along the hard copies, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Yeah, sorry. I actually have a bunch of questions. One is the fireplace chimney in use? Is it, because it's like in front of that window and it just seems very awkward.
The fireplace chimney is not currently in use, but if it were to be considered for use, it would be a vent-free gas fireplace, which would not require exhaust. The chimney does have a slight offset with respect to the window beside it on the second floor.
And then is that balcony where the Palladian window is that a working balcony or just a faux balcony?
It is purely faux. It's to represent tropical vibes that my client specifically requests that I do not take objection to. I think it's extremely lightweight to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions for you, Doctor. The first one, because I actually appreciate the amount of the green building technologies that you've listed. Some of them I would actually be curious about incorporating. So are you effectively what you're saying regarding the insulation is basically no spray foam is going in this house? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. And then this one, and I think this is especially with the 2023 building code, practically speaking, can you even get away with anything less than 20 SEER on a house these days?
Yes, you can.
Can't, but typically, do you see it with 2023 building code, getting anything under than a 20 SEER?
Yes, you can.
I know you can, but do you see it, would you say it's
Do I see it quite often? Yeah, I see it quite often. I see mechanical contractors going for systems that are 17 SEER or less for split systems all the time. I'd say if I don't dictate the SEER efficiency to be at least 22, they'll show up with a 16.2 SEER.
Okay. And that meets 23 building code?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mendez, from the moment that you review this application and that you have concerns, right, and you are recommending continuance, but the applicant modifies certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you are feeling more comfortable with this application, although you still have some reservations.
Yeah, and those conditions were drafted in the event, if the board wanted to go through approval. These were our conditions of approval. This was our sort of roadmap to approval.
So 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is if they remove the Palladian window, what you would think that would be the appropriate replacement for that application?
So a tripartite casement window configuration would be appropriate. It's or either appropriate size panes or double hung windows.
Okay, and then because for most of it, but I agree with your report, right? I pretty much agree with all your comments, and I want to make sure that if we enforce all these conditions of approval, all the items that you are stating that doesn't comply with the standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
That will comply.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And Jordan and I worked over this to in the event that, again, you were to go forward with an approval. So we wanted to make sure that these conditions adhere to all of our concerns.
Anthony, a few slides previous to this, you had reasons for asking them to come back and delay this, a continuance. So I'm confused between the slide you're showing right now and then the conditions for approval. Could you explain that to me?
So the conditions that we drafted, that was actually more of a recent thing. We wanted to be very specific on our concerns, but we also wanted to, give a clearer path to approval. We are recommending continuance tonight. Retention of the facade on the east retention of the fenestration of that east facade, that's not as big of a concern right now. We're still concerned with the scale, mass, and style.
I think the conditions were just added in case the board did want to consider passing it, but even though staff is recommending continuance.
Exactly.
So your recommendation is continuance?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mendez, is the garage a contributing part of the structure?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I apologize if I missed that, but is there a date on that garage is being built? I think that might have been said earlier on.
I think it may be in the staff report if the property record card is in there. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Could you pull up the green card that you showed?
Yes, it's in the applicant's presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Here we go. So from 1962.
Yeah, so this is the documentation from 62, but sometimes on the green cards, there's like additional notes, but since we don't have the, the entire green card, it's the context we have.
It's in.
It doesn't have the information on
Okay.
there.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it for your presentation?
Anthony, I had one other question.
Yeah.
The columns, I saw that they're being removed, but you didn't have any concerns about that, like step detailing on them, like the entry columns that are being replaced?
Which elevation drawing is this on?
It's the front elevation, the street facing. In the renderings, they're shown as like a stepped capital and base.
It may have just been an oversight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, we'll move into public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this case? Please come to the podium. If you'll state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes, and a reminder to fill out a comment card, and please give it to the, perfect, thank you.
You can give it to the young lady all the way across.
Getting my steps in. What about photos? No, I give them to them.
Yep, you can give those down at the end, and then we'll pass them along if
Okay,
you'd like to
okay.
distribute something.
Hi, my name is Jane Williams, and I live at 228 Nottingham Boulevard. And Russ was my architect of this home. And I will say, I came here new, and by any means, I could have torn it down and rebuilt it, but I wanted to preserve the neighborhood. And I wanted very specifically to keep this house charming and make it better. And all along the way, Russ was very instrumental in helping me do that, making sure the windows were, when they were pulled out and redone properly, because new windows had to be put in, they were done original to the style of the home. Everything we did was to keep the integrity of this home, and I did do the new addition to the home. So I will say, he's beyond above making things correct. And a lot of times you look at just a drawing and you say, oh, yeah, yes, no. But when you see the finished product, I had nothing but neighbors leaving me thank you notes, saying thank you for preserving what we had and making it better. And I even went above and beyond and added new features to the home, but you really wouldn't notice, but it made the property and the neighborhood so much more charming. So as far as a person paying attention to details and looking at these homes, I think the way I look at it is making sure that curb appeal and things are better looking than just a minimalist home. Charm. And what's so special about El Cid is the charm of it, and making sure that it ends up looking incredible and not this modern, terrible box that has no charm and history to it. So that's what I'd like to share and show you pictures of what we created together. So thank you.
So you're showing us pictures of your house?
Yes.
And you enjoyed working with the architect, but you're in support of this project?
I am, yeah. I want to see more beautiful things.
Thank you.
In the neighborhood.
Is there additional public comment for this case as it pertains to this case? Okay. Would you like a rebuttal?
So the reason why I invited Jane here this evening is because she has a unique situation. She, in my opinion, probably owns the only other minimal traditional home if you go from El Cid south to Soso, that could have been elected, or she could have elected to consider it for historic designation. I had spoke with Ann Hamilton at the time. She had agreed the home had merit due to a fast-track schedule for my client to move in the home that wasn't pursued. But her home is beautiful. It's minimal traditional in a large sense, but there's a lot of details and luxury elements to it. It's elevated off the grade. It has good crown detailing where the eaves meet the siding. It had those slotted gable end vents at the reverse gables. There were some upgrades. I think the home looks gorgeous, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move into executive session.
I think I'll start. I think this needs a whole lot more work. Maybe this went unsaid at the first hearing, but the house was, as presented in 2004, was much more charming, and I think much more correct in what it wanted to be. And so I think what happened is something got approved in 2004. I'm not going to speak to whether or not that was appropriate to approve this porch in its current form, but it's cascaded a lot of follow-up on this facade that I just don't think is appropriate. I just think the second story just needs to have no gables visible from the street, or maybe minimized completely. Or, you know, I would like to see even this gable on the front removed and do a different kind of porch that is more in keeping with the original house. If there was more restored to what it originally was, I could see that. But like now this house, you look at this house now and look what it was in 2004, it's night and day, completely different.
And that is something that we talked about at the last meeting, the simplification of the roof line and how those gables had become a dominant feature where originally there was only one street-facing gable.
Yeah, and the Palladian window needs to be abandoned completely. If you're going to do a Palladian window, it has to be done absolutely right, like properly with proper moldings, proper columns, proper entablatures. You can't just like stick it on there like it was something you saw, you know, somewhere out west. It doesn't really go with this style of house, but even if it did, if you were telling a story of a house that was improved over time, you're going to have to do it absolutely right. And to do it right would be honestly probably much more expensive than this client is willing to invest. So I would abandon it completely. And even the conjectural handrail, I think, is a bit pushing it. I just think it needs to be much more humble. All that being said, I do want to make a couple other points. I actually applaud the applicants and applicants' effort to push proper, breathable building envelopes for historic homes. I think that's a really important thing that needs to be kept in mind. So that's kind of why I want to hone in on that in his green building notes, that we should, honestly, any wood framed house, we need to encourage that, encourage bad insulation. I mean, that can be folded under getting this bonus for green bonus. I disagree with adding turf as a green, artificial turf as a green building technology. I would strike that. But yeah, yeah, that's.
So you're in support of the bonus that the board grants based off of basically the envelope insulation technique and not based off of the turf?
Yeah, I'd strike that, yeah.
And you also have concerns about the conjectural features in the roof line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll continue on. I completely agree with you, Caleb. I harken back to comments that I provided last month, particularly with the garage addition and that really wonderful sketch that almost has the pop-up appear as a dormer, or a much smaller gable, and a much lower roof line. I spoke about the program within that space justifies it being lower. I know we don't go inside the houses, but you know, you have to look at the plans, and it's a walk-in closet and a master bath. It can have a lower ceiling height justifiably. I think that continuing the second floor, mimicking the ground floor non-original porch is a mistake. And so the entirety, I think, needs to be eliminated. That middle gable, that's not even a primary bedroom. And that if those features are so important for the client, it should probably be incorporated on the rear facade, where the master bedroom is. And that's basically what I have.
No, I think that actually might make a good point regarding your, like, if it's that important, that's what garden facades are for in buildings. Buildings open up towards the rear typically. But yeah, I think now that you say that about the matching exactly the footprint of the building, I feel like the roof plan of buildings like this should be simpler. Like, they should just kind of be easy. And there's just so many things trying to be done here that it's not simple.
Just to go back, because what you're talking about relates to the compatibility standards. So you're talking about the overall massing and the roof shape. Roof shapes is specifically listed on there for compatibility and is a major distinguishing feature.
Yeah.
Okay. I also wanted to bring up another note. So this is a tax abatement project. And I just went back through and read like the tax abatement because there wasn't significant change for this project based off of the comments that the board provided at last month's meeting. So I just went back and looked at the verbiage for the tax abatement. So the tax abatement does say that the improvements must comply with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And what we're talking about right now as it pertains to that is that it does not meet number 3, that's the conjectural features. I would also say that it does not meet number 9, spatial relationships. And even number 2 also relates back to spatial relationships. So I just think it's really important as a board that we understand that the tax abatement is tied back to meeting the Secretary of Interior standards as well. It doesn't say anything about the compatibility criteria that's required for us as it pertains to the certificate of appropriateness.
And I think to that point, historic precedent, local historic precedent would go a long way in informing what needs to be done. I actually do appreciate the applicant's other client. That's actually a fine example of the massing that is indicative of what this, and of course it's a one-story house, so it's a little bit simpler what you can do. I really think this needs a strong precedent, historic precedent to inform what needs to happen.
And a reminder that our historic precedents are from the district. They should be from surrounding properties. And I just want to also reiterate in number 3 of the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation to quote, changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or elements from other historic properties will not be undertaken. So I just, when we're making these comments, I just think we always need to come back to the Secretary of Interior Standards and the compatibility criteria which govern our decisions. So our main points were simplifying the roof line. There was particular consideration in regards to the garage mass, elimination of the conjectural features that are on the second floor. There's still quite a large mass that's being proposed. It sounded like some of the solid to void considerations had been addressed previously, so that is one that's been better addressed. I just wanted to recap from the things that weren't addressed from last time that still need to be addressed relative to a certificate of appropriateness and a tax abatement.
if there's no further discussion, I'm going to, with that, move to make a motion to continue the item HPB 2589 to the March 24th, 2026 Historic Preservation Board meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Right. Thank you. Okay. Our next project is 246 Greenwood Drive.
Good evening. I'm Randy Stoft from the Stoft Architectural Group, Delray Beach, Naples, Sarasota. We were here at the January meeting, and we fielded a lot of comments, and we went back with the client who lives in the neighborhood, and we think we've redesigned the residence and tried to address all of your comments. Among those was severely simplifying the roof line, which we went to a much simpler profile, as you'll see. We've lowered the plate heights. We reduced the pitch of the roof, and we did reorganize and reproportion a lot of the windows and openings to be a little more appropriate with what you guys had suggested, including lining up some of the wall, changing a little bit of the proportions here and there, and bringing it into more of a compatibility with a Monterey style with the narrow balcony tucked under the roof line. We were still able to maintain our basic floor plan, which was great. Some of the walls came in a little bit. We still have the big rear yard, which our client, wanted to maintain. So we think it turns the corner beautifully and would be a very great contributing residence for the neighborhood. And we're here to field any comments. We did work with the staff on their comments also. We have made a few other modifications to our resubmittal. And there are conditions of approval, which we agree with them all. We have no issue with them. A lot of them are just details that would have had to have been addressed anyway, but we'll be happy to work with the staff on any of those. Thank you.
Again, Jordan Hodges for the record. This is a three-part application, two-part application. The demolition of the non-contributing primary structure, non-contributing accessory structure, and then the COA for new construction alterations for the new two-story single family, and then modifications to an existing accessory structure that will become a garage. So here are the non-contributing resources. These were last evaluated in 2009 for the Prospect Park district, and they do fall outside of the period of significance and therefore are non-contributing and eligible for demolition. For the proposed site plan, the property, again, kind of has an increased corner setback with frontage on Olive to the west and Greenwood to the north. The existing driveway configurations are proposed to remain from the kind of existing setup. Again, you can see the retention of the garage there towards the south. And the applicant is using a special exception for lot coverage with the retention of that garage structure. And so that would be a 3% bonus for lot coverage. And the second is a 2% increase for additional landscaping that is supposed to kind of mitigate the mass of the new construction. And that has been evaluated. The preliminary plan has been evaluated and found to generally be in compliance. That will go through full review at permitting to make sure that the landscaping is above and beyond code minimums. But this was what was presented at the January meeting, and staff had found, several compatibility issues with roof shape, scale, fenestration, and overall style. So this is the proposed elevation. So the February redesign responds directly to the primary concerns identified in the staff report, with a focus on improving visual compatibility with adjacent structures. Revisions address the architectural style, and like I said, scale, bulk, massing, and overall volume. Now features a simplified footprint, which leads to a simplified roof line. And again, we are moving into a defined architectural style, which is Monterey Revival. And this style features simplified but staggered front massing and a recessed body that incorporates a second-story balcony, a cantilevered balcony under the primary roof line. And this style was pretty popular amongst the romantic revival styles that kind of took hold in the 20s and 30s. You see quite a few of these on Palm Beach. A little rendering from the front. So again, you'll see the cantilevered balcony, simple massing, kind of bracketed overhangs, and a little punch-out bay on the ground floor. This was the January presentation for what's visible in South Olive. Staff had concerns over the elevating of the roof of the garage accessory structure. But that has been lowered back down. And again, all of the heights have been brought down. So the wall height went from 22 to 20 foot 6 inches. The overall roof height was lowered from 23 feet 11 to 23.3. And then that accessory structure wall height was reduced from 13 feet to 10 feet. And again, you can see that increased landscaping on the corner when viewed from Olive. Again, on the streetscape, the window proportions now generally match header and sill heights of neighboring two-story structures. The eave line of the roof is generally, kind of at the either parapet line or roof line of neighboring two-story structures. And then on the South Olive Avenue, the detached garage roof line is now kind of below or equal to the building immediately south, where it was significantly higher in the previous iteration. Again, January proposal for the rear facade and the current proposal for the rear facade. Staff has included some conditions of approval that we can go through in regards to the fenestration on the rear. And again, this is the kind of east, more utilitarian facade, very simple. So the underlined sections, building height, proportion of openings, roof shape, and then the size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume were all issues staff had with the January proposal, and we find that now generally in compliance. Again, for the surrounding context, Greenwood as an eclectic street. There's two-story, one-story in a variety of architectural styles with a variety of roof types. And we do find the current proposal to be generally in compliance. And we do have 8 recommended conditions of approval, but again, staff is recommending approval, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions from the board?
Jordan, you had this, there was 8 conditions, but conditions 5 through 8 just flashed for a second.
Sorry. Condition 5 deals with the porch detailing. 6 is the fenestration of that rear facade, and then condition number 7, so there is I'll flip back to the elevations. The kind of punched out box bay window on the front is currently three windows wide. There's a little bit of blank space there, which I'm sure will generally be hid with landscaping, but staff did put in the condition that perhaps they could go to go to a four-light that is kind of similar to what's on the rear of the building, just to eat up a little bit of that facade space.
It's an impressive turnaround for 1 month.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Very. Yep.
I had a quick question for the applicant. On the main roof, there's like a little flat portion. Is that to comply with zoning heights? Well, it's really more for the applicant, but there's a skinny little flat part of the main roof. It's like
here?
Yeah, it's 2 feet wide. So that could come to a ridge and still meet zoning heights?
No, we did that so it elongates the hip a little bit visually, but it doesn't have to do that. It's not a height issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we are ready to move into public comment. If there's any public comment on this case, I have no comment cards. Thank you. Would the applicant like a rebuttal? You're allowed a 3-minute rebuttal if you'd like. You don't need to give one.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move into executive session.
I think that is a great turnaround. It's impressive. Yeah.
It's
Beautiful.
very impressive.
Yeah.
And I also think, like we were just talking about the simplification of the roof line, like what a great illustration this is. And I think that the project substantially is a better fit with the neighborhood, with the Secretary of Interior Standards, with the compatibility criteria, because the applicant really took everything that we discussed and put it into a revised presentation very quickly.
So it sounds like you like it.
It's really impressive to see like the willingness to work with the board and with staff. I mean, I think that this is like what this board was created for, right? To make sure that the context is fitting and when we're all working together for a common goal, like what a great outcome. The one thing that I did see in staff's comments was relative to the railing. And so I think we need to just give direction on if we like this railing design, if we would want the applicants proposing like metal, I don't know what to call it, kind of beyond that X pattern, like metal to comply with the Secretary of Interior Standards, which I think would be, thank you, Jordan. I think you would actually see that more in person. So I think that we should maybe just look at recommending they go for staff to review a different railing pattern that is wood that complies with code. And that's the way that Jordan has it written in. I just wanted to give them direction on like that.
Is
That's
that
what I would like
railing
to see.
powder-coated aluminum?
So staff's condition for the entire balcony system. So the cantilevered porch beams, posts, and railings shall be made of wood. The posts shall utilize a chamfered corner detail, and the railing system shall be integrated and connected to the post, integrated with and connected to the posts. The final railing design, subject to Florida Building Code compliance, shall be reviewed by staff at permitting. So one of the issues was It looked like, I don't know if I can zoom in here, it looked like the railing systems were detached, like a panel system, and detached from the columns, so we're recommending that essentially be stick-built. And then the opening size between the rail system, it's greater than, 3 inches, 4 inches? So there's going to have to be some sort of safety measure behind that, whether that's a cable system or glass or something that would pass building code approval.
Right.
If anyone has recommendations on that.
And my recommendation was essentially to eliminate that like cable detail, because I think it would be very apparent, even though it's not as apparent on the drawings, and just have the
Just put a
detail
square,
modified.
yeah.
Yep, just do like concentric squares basically, so you can keep your X and then do concentric squares to meet code, or rectangles. But I think that staff also did a really good job on the conditions of approval.
I also want to compliment just the quick turnaround, because pursuant to my comment last hearing, what style is that, now we have something we can react to, that with like clear direction. And so I say that all to say I see a couple things that I could see being tweaked to really push it to what this Monterey should be. So if we stick here on this front rendering, I'm not going to say for sure that this is always the case in Monterey, but usually the roof is an L shape where the porch is a lean-to on top of that. Now, where I noticed that is that we've got a floating corner on the beam at the column of the porch. So that's not something, that's something you'd want to avoid. So like that would be a condition of approval, is that we don't have any floating corners. That's a modernist detail. You wouldn't really see that on these houses. So that support beam should sit directly on top of that column. But I noticed that then, of course, then that's where the Monterey roofs are, like a lean-to on an L-shaped roof. So that, that 2/2 bay, that would be its own roof L-ing into a major mass, and then the porch is a lean-to. Again, I don't think you need to do that to resolve this condition, but that's what called me to it, is that the porch is a subsidiary roof mass to the main house. So that historical precedent might resolve it, but you might be able to resolve it without doing that, keeping under one roof. Then I think what you need, I think you need graduated balcony supports. So like the major brackets underneath the columns are great, and then in between, smaller brackets. So you could be, it could be like one big one, 2 little ones, and then the middle one, like 3 middle ones, but there needs to be some rhythm there. It can't be just a repetition of major bracket elements. Those are very easy prescriptive ones. And then I don't have a real solution for this. I'm just going to point it out as something that kind of bugs me, is how the massing doesn't relate well to the kitchen below for the roof. It just kind of smashes in. I almost wish there was a way to like differentiate those two lean-tos somehow, so it didn't look like it was an afterthought, or maybe the hip runs exactly into that corner so that it looks like it might have been a porch that got filled in later where the hip ran into the corner. I'm not crazy about that, but that's just something that bugs me. But yeah, I think just a couple of these tweaks to this porch will be completely consistent with a Monterey style house. I do kind of feel for the applicant putting the cables. I don't have a great solution here, but looking at some of these Monterey houses, what's nice is they almost like don't meet code.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what is like really nice about them, is making them look like they're completely insubstantial hand railing. So.
Yeah, and I agree, Caleb, but since we do have to meet codes.
Yeah, I would, yeah. So I don't know, I don't know how I feel about the cable. I don't know how I would feel about if you did glass. I'd be open to just having staff work with the applicant and tweaking that.
Yeah, and I think that some of these things we can allow to be like differentiated as well. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a historic structure, but it is in keeping with the neighborhood. And I think your points are good points. I also want to really applaud the applicant. Like, this is just the transformation of this project is significant. And I think we could be ready to make a motion.
I can make a motion.
Thank you.
What is this? Just one for new construction?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number HPB 25-101, COA 000-403-2025, 246 Greenwood Drive for new construction in accordance with...
Oh, there's a demolition first.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. That's exactly right. Sorry, James.
That's okay. I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number HPB 25-101, COA 000-403-2025, 246 Greenwood Drive for demolition in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the City's Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number HPB 25-101, COA 000-403-2025, 246 Greenwood Drive for new construction in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach. Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, standards 9 and 10, the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the city's Historic Preservation Ordinance 9449 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include the following 8 conditions identified in the staff report, as well as working with staff to further refine the rafters of the supporting the balcony at the front facade with a more appropriate rhythm and size. Caleb, is that?
And eliminate the floating corner, like at the corner, like support the corner under the column.
That furthers the endeavor to eliminate the floating corner, as discussed. And that's all.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations and thank you again.
Thanks very much.
I believe our next case falls under new business, HUB 26-02 for 305 Dyer Road.
Yeah, it's 305 Dyer.
Good evening. For the record, Rafael Rodriguez from Studio SR, Architecture and Design. Very excited to present a new house on Dyer Road. As an architect, we get very excited every time we get an opportunity to build a new home in El Cid. This will actually be our 5th home that we've done in El Cid, so I hope you like it. And with Mediterranean Revival homes, there's sort of a palette that we always are guided by. And I'd just like to go through that briefly with you. It's always the barrel tile roof, true barrel tile roof, clay barrel tile roof, and usually more than one color, so you can give it some, it looks aged, so it doesn't look brand new. We've decided to incorporate some of the other elements like blind arches in our design, which is basically an arch, closed arch above a window opening. This is a typical detail we've used before of a column with a bracket column capital, which we've incorporated into the design. And that's very reminiscent of some of the 1920s architecture, such as the house that is on Pershing. In this case, this is a cast stone column, but above you see a wood bracket holding up a beam. Then some of the other influences are Medref. It sort of takes its essence from all areas of the Mediterranean, including South Africa. In this case, this is sort of a Moroccan balcony. Always the outriggers with TNG soffits, also incorporating smaller window openings in the facade, which, again, we have incorporated in the design. Wood trellis design, which is very common of homes of that period. I lost the presentation. Sorry. Presentation. Yeah. I'll start with the survey and some of the issues that we're dealing with here on this property is that we've made some decisions. In other words, so on the east end of the property, there are these hideous concrete telephone poles that we decided not to deal with, but we have to. So, and we also kept the existing curb cut and a lot of the street trees, which are very mature and in very good condition. There's also clusia hedges that are incorporated into the design. We're trying to maintain those also, sort of as a green element. This is the existing one-story home, and then you can see the pool is located on the west end of the property, which is sort of where we decided to maintain the pool also. Existing photographs of the home, and I think you could see I'm trying to see if you can see the telephone poles. Unfortunately, you can see on the first photograph.
Let me see that real quick. I'll make that a little bit bigger. There we go.
Okay. This is the driveway, existing driveway. These are the concrete poles. This is the two mature, I believe those are mahogany trees, which you are keeping. So the way we perceive this is we have a main roof, which is the main mass of the home, and then we decided to step back further to break up the massing of the home. There is a one-story garage guest house pushed back on the rear property line. Then there is a one-story, there's two-story element abutting the house on the front, and then there's a trellis, second-story trellis, overlooking the pool area. The floor plan is designed in a manner that I like to start with the driveway, which we're maintaining, and this is a carport. There is a one-car garage, and we've decided to incorporate a cabana or a guest room in the other half of the garage. There is a gate which leads to a breezeway, which leads to the side entrance of the house. In between the garage structure and the two-story house is a courtyard, which will feature a fireplace, a fountain, and a seating area. The main facade is along Dyer, and then there's 12.5 feet back from the property line, there's this first element, then it recedes back to the entrance feature, which is 8 inches, and then it recedes back another 2 feet. So the house does recede as you go eastward. The kitchen is located on the northwestern property. There's dining room, living room, which has a fireplace. There's also a fireplace on the exterior. This entire wing features this loggia, which is the exterior living area, which has a living loggia, a dining loggia, and then the pool area. Behind the barbecue area is the pool bath and then a pool storage. Adjoining the kitchen to the right is the family room, the powder room, and then the AC with some storage. There's a foyer in between the main entrance from Dyer and the side entrance from the garage. There is also an office bedroom on the first floor with its own ensuite bathroom. The second story carries the stepping back motif going eastward. We have the primary bedroom on the northwest corner for quiet. The primary bathroom overlooks the courtyard. They have closets. Then you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom here, which is accessible to the terrace. There is a laundry room next to the stair, and then the bedroom, another bedroom on the eastern side. There's also a balcony off bedroom number 2, which overlooks the courtyard. Roof plan. We've had discussions with staff, and we've had a couple of go-arounds, and one of the decisions that we came to was they thought it was a better solution if we made the garage guest house a 1-story parapet with a flat roof. Also, we try to incorporate a 2-story section here abutting the hip roof. I'll show the elevations. These are the sort of different studies that we have done. The first one is the existing steel scrape elevations. You can see the little 1-story 50s ranch home that was on the property. The homes to the west are all 2-story mission-style homes from the 1920s. They're all wood-framed. The second, the proposed streetscape elevation, is the submitted plans that we did. And then we had reviews from the staff. And then the last one on the bottom is the one we want to submit today. We're also asked to do a streetscape elevation of Olive Avenue. And again, same thing, all the studies that we have done. First one is the existing 1-story home, and then the second with the barrel tile roof over the garage structure, which I'm highlighting here, and then the flat roof on the garage structure. We're also asked to change the windows, which we have done, to make them a little larger. I'll go through the elevations at a later time. The other thing we did, which I thought was very important and crucial to this design, is we showed the house across the street, which is 310 Dyer, which, as you can see the massing, it's really a hip roof structure with a 2-story accessory structure to the west. The proposed revised streetscape elevation is something that the staff wanted to see, which is sort of just extending a flat roof parapet up to the hip roof area. We feel that kind of loses the entrance feature of the home, but it's something also we can take a look at. These are the elevation studies. The proposed south elevation was the original design, which we also showed a hip roof over the westernmost portion. Then the modified design had the parapet, flat roof parapet. The recommended south was the entire parapet, meeting the hip roof area. What we prefer is the one we're showcasing today, which is sort of this maintaining the stepping of the building to break up the mass, and also the flat parapet over the two-story, and then the flat parapet at the garage. This shows the south elevation and the revised south elevation based on staff comments. Same issue with the rear elevation. You could see the flat parapet on the garage structure, the larger windows, and then the trellised terrace on the second floor on the west, and the doors into the powder room and storage area. East elevation, similar study showing the flat roof as opposed to the barrel tile roof on the garage structure. Section. This is sections through the home showing the courtyard beyond with the fireplace, the fountain, and the door into the guest room. Typical wall details showing the barrel tile, the T&G soffits, the scrolled outrigger. One of the comments also staff made was to do the double hung windows with a 6/6 mutton pattern. We originally had a 4/4, but we were okay with that. So rendering from Dyer and the driveway showing different configurations. This, of course, shows, we didn't have time to change, my render didn't have time to change the this hip roof on the garage to a flat parapet roof. So you can see here, this is before the recommendation that we set back the tree, I'm sorry, let's see if you can see it here. But this wing with the flat roof on the main house did get set back to 2 feet. There's the new trees. This is the west elevation, showing the loggia and then the terrace on the second floor. And this is also the west elevation showing the other side with the powder room, the outdoor shower, and the home beyond. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
All right, Anthony Mendez again for the record, speaking as a case manager for HPB 2602. The request at 305 Dyer Road is for a demolition new construction. Subject property is in SF14C3, that's short for historic, single-family, high-density residential, context 3. Subject property was constructed circa 1951. It would be consistent with the third period of significance for the El Cid Historic District, which mentions post-World War II expansion, 1945 to 1960. However, in the most recent 2008 survey of El Cid, this existing property was deemed non-contributing and not consistent with the character-defining features nor historic context of the district. So, per applicant's request, it's the demolition of the one-story non-contributing single-family residence and the new construction of a two-story, 3,995 square foot single-family residence per our historic preservation ordinance. Applications for demolition and new construction shall be reviewed by the board simultaneously. Since new construction is anachronous with a historic district's period of significance, this would be constructed at the earliest in 2026. It's outside of the period of significance. It's automatically a non-contributing structure, but it is still subject to our historic preservation ordinance. And non-contributing structures should ideally achieve a design that is, one, compatible with compatible meaning that's appropriate for the broader historic context of this district. 2, subordinate, allowing the surrounding contributing properties to prevail. And 3, differentiated to not create a false sense of historical development. And our additional criteria for new construction alterations outline specific design standards for new construction pertinent to these 3 objectives. Also gives very specific language to surrounding properties. We have the proposed site plan from our applicant, proposed primary facade and south elevation drawing with a nice rendering, east elevation drawing, north elevation drawing, west elevation drawing, and the first floor plan provided by our applicant, the second floor plan, roof plan showing the specifics of the Varea barrel tile. You have sections provided by our applicant, the window schedule. It's nice to see that our applicant has made some changes in light of our staff report. Door schedule for zoning, the applicant is not requesting to utilize any special exception bonuses and meets the maximum lot coverage and floor area ratio provisions. There are minor issues pertinent to Article 10, which deal with supplemental district regulations. Here are the context for surrounding properties, most of which are contributing, with the exception of 239 Dyer Road, that's non-contributing. Staff still has concerns with the design iteration that was submitted and what we wrote our staff report on. Having said that, we are recommending approval of the demolition approval with conditions of the new construction. Staff did conduct a pre-application meeting with the applicant. We had an internal review process, but we still have some primary concerns. Here are our 14 conditions. The first 2 are our most critical concerns, and they're just based on a review of surrounding Mission and Mediterranean Revival properties. They primarily entail the roof configuration and that front facade. So for conditions 1 and 2, we have a few graphics. It's outlined in pages 10 and 11 of my staff report. Ideally, there should be more of a push and pull within the massing and that appearance of the primary facade. Surrounding properties also predominantly feature flat roofs with parapets over their primary massing elements. The barrel tile hip roofs were sort of used as more of an accent feature. Two graphics from figure number 6 of my staff report. Ideally, the roof should be broken up. The step backs that are in the application should be increased. Should be converted to a flat roof. Conditions 3 and 4, we noticed a lot of window space, and that is sort of understandable given that this would be the fenestration for an interior staircase. However, when looking at the proportion of openings as part of our additional criteria, this is a very, very long window, and there are very few surrounding properties that had that element of those long windows that go from floor to floor. Window E, that's on the first floor, that should be revised to either an arch casement or a fixed window. We noticed that this arched element on this facade should be continued with this window as well. The roof, yes, of the garage should be switched to an appropriate step parapet. It's nice to see that our applicant has done some revisions to that. Again, also for window C, should be replaced with window D. So to go for the 6/6 as opposed to the 4/4 in the garage, since there was a lot of blank space on the garage. 7 is for the intermediate floor space that currently stands at 2 feet 5 inches, which is pretty tall. If you notice on the north elevation drawing, we see this sort of colonnade, and we think that just as an effort to alleviate that height, if we would just continue that arched breezeway onto the west facade as well. Condition number 10, we've noticed that the applicant is proposing smooth stucco, while as the surrounding properties have a lightly textured stucco. Condition number 11 is for, it's pertinent to zoning. I think these are a little bit pixelated, but just upon applying for a building permit for section 94-305, it's under supplemental district regulations. It states that mechanical equipment may not project more than 4 feet into a setback. Condition 12, again, it's also under supplemental district regulations for the design of the proposed gates and that they meet their required height provisions. Same thing goes for the pool. Since this is a corner property, the front lot is measured along South Olive Avenue, even though Dyer's where the entrance is. So it has to comply for a corner lot line for 10 feet for both the water's edge and the screen's enclosure. The corner site setback as outlined in our code is the amount of space required to be located away from the property line on that portion of the lot that's wider and adjacent to the public right-of-way. And then the last condition, it's been slightly reworded. The intent is still the same. It's that exposed metal flashing caps shall not be installed over rooftop parapet walls, and that's a pretty standard condition that we impose for typical building permits that have flat roofs. So the applicable codes are for demolition and new construction for the additional criteria for new construction alterations. And since this is a request for new construction, we did do a signpost on February 11th. With that, that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Yes.
For condition number 7, are you proposing that the applicant add more columns?
No, not necessarily. It's the height of the, let me see if I could pull up that slide. It's that intermediate space right here that's highlighted in green. That's what we find very excessively tall, and that's part of the floor plan, and that's what's in the applicant's section drawing.
Caleb, is your microphone on?
Yeah, no. Would you consider articulation of that in a different way appropriate than arches?
We're open to that as staff. That was just one mechanism. That's because we noticed on the north elevation drawing that there was a colonnade. It seemed sort of hidden, so I think just expressing that and expanding upon that design idea onto the west facade was one of the manners to, I guess, alleviate that height.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on this case? Okay, I see none. Would the applicant like a rebuttal?
We're okay with some of these staff recommendations. I would like to work with Anthony on that west arch facade and get it worked out. But for the most part, we're okay with this, and we've incorporated into it already. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Into the
you.
design, thank you.
And before you leave the podium, could you put the slide up where you had like the 3 different options of that front facade that you had played around with?
Elevation?
Yes, it was the front elevation, and you had proposed, modified, there were a bunch of different options, which is helpful to see. Yep. Just think it would be helpful for the board to have that pulled up.
It's this one.
This
right?
one?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's see if we can.
Thank you, that's great.
Please.
Perfect. Okay. And now we'll move into executive session. No, you can sit down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually like the design as proposed regarding the main roof. I can see, I guess, option A on here as like the next step as appropriate, maybe differentiate with the eave heights of the I guess that's the bedroom and office mass, and then the main house mass. I think the amount of parapet in option C, I'm not crazy about. I do agree about that the garage should be a parapet. I think that would be, yeah, so I guess, yeah, C, recommended south elevation on the bottom right. I think that presents the nicest. And honestly, I think I like this, maybe this is just me, I like the simple roof geometry. I think that always reads clearly in any project. So like adding a bunch of parapets that are an L shape, I don't know if that's cleaning up the roof geometry. I think a simple roof will always read cleaner.
Yeah, and I think that staff had recommended that based on the historic precedent in the neighborhood. And then maybe you could pull up, did you have a precedent, like what you were referring to relative to like the, I guess, the first option C, recommended south elevation and the staff condition pertaining to that?
See if I could pull it up. I didn't provide a precedent, but I did provide just the streetscape.
I think that would be helpful. Because I think this is one of the main points of the presentation that we need to come to an agreement on.
Here we go. So this is along Dyer Road.
So the hip roofs that do exist on the mission style, particularly with the streetscape, you see less of a hip, right? And that was what you were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're not as massive.
Okay. And then can we just go back to the proposed elevations again, the different options?
Yep.
One of the things that I'd like to say is, upon my time sitting, which isn't that long on this dais, I have to say the staff reports and the presentations are exceptional.
Absolutely.
The graphics, the work, the thought, they're very impressive, and they really go a long way to your articulation to help us, at least help me tremendously. I learned something on many of your applications, and that's wonderful. So I just really want to give accolades where they're due. I don't know if it's me, but am I the only one that wants to see a tower in the middle of the entrance with the stair and resolve it all?
Well, actually, my reaction is to switch with where the front door is and put it underneath the parapet.
Yeah,
because it goes right into where the courtyard is. Because then that feels like that would be an entry feature.
There's definitely a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright compression expansion going on in the floor plan, like really tight hallways and then entering more spacious rooms. I actually prefer, I'm going to disagree with my colleague, and I kind of prefer, I think it was a rendering, I prefer flat roof on a portion, but not two portions. And I think I like the barrel roof on that, and the barrel roof on the garage. It's just me.
So we're at least in agreement on the main. We're at least in agreement on this main part.
On the two-story volume.
Is that you like this? Yeah. You like exactly this on the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one that I'm supportive of.
I'm leaning towards this one as well. It's
with the hip roof on the accessory structure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind C, but if you like this one, I mean, I understand what staff is trying to say, right? I mean, the hip roof is like a accent feature, right? Okay. And not the main roof in this district. So I understand what they are trying to do. What I don't agree too much is with the arches on the back colonnade. I think that can be flat like is shown. I think that if you add arches, now I think that I know where Caleb was going, that maybe they want to incorporate additional columns and it's going to get more complicated.
Yeah, because the the arch needs to be supported by
correct.
something.
Yeah, correct.
So,
and I agree.
Yeah, I can I'd revise 7. I'd revise 7 to say something like the applicant shall work with staff to improve the articulation of the loggia.
Is it the interstitial space?
Well, there's a couple things, honestly. The first thing I would do is probably differentiate the beam height. So even if it is total 30 inches, I'd probably break it up into at least 2 pieces, maybe 3. The 3 might be a little bit too diminutive. And then the other thing is I'd probably, the span is quite wide, but the thing about Spanish architecture is those Zapato corbels, those are supposed to, you can make those technically longer so that you reduce.
But what is the interstitial space that we have right now? Before we get into the.
Between the columns?
No, the space between the second floor, the finished second floor, and the ceiling height. Like, that's my question, is do we have an excessive amount of space there?
Like, could that 30 inches just be reduced regardless?
Yeah, could the applicant, do you know what the interstitial space is? So the second floor is 11.6. What's your ceiling height on that first floor?
We try to maintain at least a 10-foot ceiling height with 8-foot doors, which is what we selected.
So you only have you have 1'6" for interstitial?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not.
18 inches.
So it's not that.
It's wood trusses.
Yeah, I think it's the column. I think the column height has to be a little bit larger because it's being expressed as larger than it really is in that detail. Okay, thank you. To go back to the larger items, though, the board seems to be in agreement on the massing of the 2-story, basically as proposed, right? Where there's more of a hip, and then the accent of the parapet roof on kind of the third portion of the 2-story. And then it seems like we're kind of split on the hip roof versus the parapet roof on the accessory structure.
But the flat roof on that one has to be not flush. It has to be step back. There was a version where it was step back and one version where it was not.
Yeah, so
I prefer it pushed back.
Yeah, so staff's recommendation, this most forward portion here, I think is set back 8 inches. And then the second step back is greater. I think it's around 2 feet. So we were requesting that the step back on that first portion be increased a little bit beyond 8 inches.
And I agree with the vice chair relative to the accessory structure having the parapet roof, because I also agree with staff that the hip roof wants to be more of an accent, and to have so much of it have a hip roof, I feel like that's kind of more of what the applicant's proposing, but it's also taking into consideration staff's concerns.
Parapet roof is really good looking.
Well, and the reason I like the parapet roof on the garage, and I like the hip roof too, but just driving down Olive, there's a lot of 1-story houses that are just parapet. I feel like that's more in keeping on the Olive street elevations.
That's a good point.
And then one of the other big points was it sounds like we were not in favor of the arches at the back loggia, that we would want the proportions of that played with a little bit more so that perhaps the columns get a little bit larger so that 2'5" shrinks down.
Yeah.
Or play with the detail.
Yeah. I would just say play with the articulation and/or proportion.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a clear direction on what we want the volumes to look like. It sounded like we were generally in agreement with staff's conditions, except for that column detail. Is this something that we can approve with conditions or something that needs to come back? Maybe that's a question for staff too.
Well, this recommendation is approval with the following conditions. So I think they're comfortable.
Okay.
The
It sounds like we're ready for a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's no more discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion.
And we had
Thank you, James.
2 for this, correct?
And I think, because I think even the one with the parapet roof garage is a separate condition, and then we could just strike the condition about the main roof, which I think is the first or second.
Just make sure, if you make sure to, in your motion, refer to any of the conditions by number that have changed and
Yes.
spell out what they are.
Sure. I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number HPB 2602 COA 000428-2026 305 Dwyer Road for demolition in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted, the staff report, which contain competent substantial evidence.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number HPB 2602, COA 000428-2026 for 305 Dwyer Road, for new construction in accordance with Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitations, specifically standards 9 and 10, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the city's Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, and the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449, the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include the following 14 staff recommendation conditions with the modifications as follows. Condition 1 shall be modified that the approval is for the roof configuration. Was that option B?
C.
C. Outlined as condition C in the applicant's presentation, which included a flat roof and parapet on the garage, and the front portion, also two-story front portion, being a flat roof and parapet configuration. It shall be staff's discretion if the revised roof plan go back to the Historic Preservation Board for further review. Condition 2 can remain the way I see it. And then condition 7 shall be modified that the applicant shall work with staff to modify the intermediate floor of the west elevation terrace system to reduce in height or visual verticality, subject to the review and approval of staff. It shall be staff's discretion if the modification needs to come back to the Historic Preservation Board for further review. How's that?
Excellent. Do we have a
Second
second? We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. The motion carries. Congratulations.
Nice project.
Our last case of the evening is for 309 Central Drive, HPB 26-06. Oh, thank you.
All right, good evening. My name is Michael. I'm the owner of this property. We're here to request a certificate of appropriateness to fully restore the home and do a second-story addition. The majority of the property is already 2 stories, but there is on the east wing a garage, which is just 1 story that we would like to add a living space on the second story. The whole property is in bad shape, but the roof of that garage is entirely collapsed and has been exposed to all the elements for a long period of time, evidently. We're also requesting a variance for the cumulative setback. It is just a 2,500 square foot lot. Currently, the cumulative setback is less than 10 feet. We've got 5 feet on the west side and 4.3 on the east side. With the demolition of the garage space, it would allow us the opportunity to increase the setback on that short side to a standard 5 feet minimum requirement. So you can see it's an eyesore to the neighborhood and in desperate need of restoration. Quick background, 1926, again, a 2,500 square foot lot, neglected, severe termite damage, and, pretty bad shape. So you can see some of the damage here. And then the collapsed roof in the garage.
Wow.
What we want to do is bring it back to life. You can see here in the illustration that the majority of the structures remains the same, except for the addition over that garage space. As far as the variance, you can see on that east side, it encroaches on a minimum 5 foot. We worked with staff to increase it and at least meet a minimum of 5 feet, giving us 5 and 5, and a cumulative request of 10 feet total. So in the end, it's a tight spaces, it's in bad shape, but it does have some nice potential to restore the piece of history. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Kind of go over this. So certificate of appropriateness for additions and alterations, demolition of the single-story attached garage and construction of a 2-story garage addition, and a variance from the cumulative setback requirements. You can see the parcel here outlined mid-block on the north side of Central. So the property is a contributing resource. It was constructed in 1926. And this whole area of town, the Central Park area, was developed in 1922. And then, we started seeing drastic slowing of the kind of economy and the crash of the Florida economy at the end of 26. So when you get around 26 into the early 30s, things start becoming much more simplified, less ornamented. So this is a very restrained mission or Mediterranean revival house. Here is from the west elevation. You can see that kind of little porch projection, and then it has a neat little planter detail around that. And here is that garage wing, and it has kind of an interesting little buttress wall in front of it with a little bell-shaped cutout, and then a secondary entrance on the side there. So we're unsure whether the garage was built at the same time of the house. I would say it likely is just due to likely was due to the positioning of the residence and the garage. But I do believe they were connected at some point with that little hyphen feature. But very, very poor condition. Somehow this property does not have code compliance issues, but was recently purchased by the current applicant. All right, and to reiterate, the property is non-conforming in several ways. So currently, without any special exception, any variance is applied. It is over floor area ratio, it is over lot coverage, it sits in the cumulative setbacks, and it is encroaching into the minimum side yard. That west minimum side yard is currently at 4.31 in lieu of the 5 required. As for the proposed site plan, and you can see the site data table, the orange box shows the kind of existing non-conforming lot size of 2,500 square feet, where 4,500 is required. So they're demolishing the garage. The new garage element will now, again, be compliant with the minimum 5-foot side yard setback, but they are deficient in the cumulative. So they're proposing 10, where 15 is required. And then lot coverage and FAR overages are requested as special exceptions, highlighted in yellow. For the lot coverage special exception, that is our standard 3% increase for green design notes that were included in the architectural plan set. And at that, maximum lot coverage standard for this parcel is 35%. They're only at 35.16, so it's barely utilizing any of that. And then for the FAR special exception, so they're using special exception G, and this is one we don't see very often, and it is specifically for small and constrained lots for historic structures. And what it essentially says is that if the FAR for that lot caps the gross square area or the gross square footage below 1,700 square feet, you can use 1,700 square feet as your base minimum and then work back to like get your FAR. So in this case, they are standard FAR is 0.55, which allows a maximum of 1,375 gross square feet. Through special exception G, they're proposing 1,679, resulting in an FAR of 0.67, but it is below the 1,700 permitted from the special exception. And then for the cumulative variance, again, they are bringing the property more into compliance by creating a 5-foot setback, and this diagram here demonstrates if the remaining 5 feet were placed onto the east side yard, the orange would not be able to be constructed. To get into the elevations, the applicants are generally proposing on the 2-story body of the house to replace windows where they currently exist with 6/6 hung windows. You can see the addition of the 2-story garage element and the 2-story hyphen. The heights kind of step down a little bit there. And then as far as the porch has been filled in at some point in time in the building's past, but they've done a little bit of exploratory demo on the interior and found these framed arched openings. So the applicants are requesting to reopen that porch with full kind of completed arches, 3 on the front, 1 on each side. And we've included a few standards of conditions about that in the fenestration. But so the remainder of the house would be the hung windows, and then this opening here features French casements with a transom. And the doors currently proposed on the house are segmental arch French doors. Streetscape elevation, so there are other 2 stories, 1 central, but again, an eclectic mix of properties. So this is the west elevation. So you can see the reopening of the porch with the kind of accentuated arch, and then the fenestration on the 2-story main body, and then a new kind of pedestrian entrance with an awning beyond that short buttress wall, and then the elevation, the east garage elevation, which is currently proposed with 2 windows in the garage and a blank 2nd-story facade. This is that aerial perspective to kind of show the spatial relationships of that. And the rear elevation, again, some minor fenestration moves. I'm sure there's going to be a tremendous amount of reframing in this, so they're some slightly adjusted window openings, and you can see the new addition. As for the surrounding context, again, it's an eclectic mix, predominantly one story, but a good mix of architectural styles. As for the variance code sections, staff highlighted all of these in our staff report and provided responses. We did believe that the application generally complies with the variance criteria. I do have criterion H, a little asterisk here. Staff noticed after the application was published that our response to that might have been a hangover from a previous application. So I'm going to go ahead and read that into the record. And section H is the property cannot be put to reasonable use, which fully complies with the requirements of this chapter. Staff finds that it does comply, that the property was originally constructed as a single-family residence in 1926. Over time, inadequate maintenance has led to significant deterioration, and the structure is now uninhabitable without substantial rehabilitation and major structural repairs. The project architect has determined that the existing garage wing is beyond repair and cannot be salvaged. As part of the proposed rehabilitation, the petitioner seeks approval to allow a reasonable floor area. The zoning ordinance includes special provisions for historic residential structures on small and constrained lots, particularly with respect to floor area ratio. In addition, the proposed massing and design of the addition must satisfy the applicable review criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Staff finds that the proposed placement and scale of the additional mass are generally appropriate and consistent with the COA review criteria. Denial of the variance could prevent the applicant from achieving a reasonable use of the property, including a reasonable anticipated floor area as provided for in code. I'm happy to go through any of the other variance criteria sections, but those are unchanged from what's in your staff report. So staff has made two recommendations for the approval of the variance. The first, that the variance shall only apply to the garage addition and shall not, establish a new buildable setback other than what's being proposed currently. And two, to mitigate potential future impacts to the neighboring property to the east, no new openings shall be administratively permitted on the east facade of the garage. So that's that second story blank area. As for the COA code sections, we found the application generally compliant with the Secretary of Interior standards and the additional criteria. And staff is recommending approval with several conditions of approval, and I'm happy to go through those. The first is just our standard window, glazing and mutton profile. Two is that the garage doors shall be styled as carriage doors. The garage doors also have an arch. We were recommending that if they do utilize glazing, that they should just be right angle windows, subject to staff review at permitting. Three, that the doors shall not utilize segmental arch doors, but that the front door shall use a round arch to reflect the porch opening, and that the remainder of the exterior doors utilize traditional flat tops or round arches, subject to staff review at permitting. Four is that the proposed crest over the garage door will be reviewed by staff at permitting. Anthony hit on this one earlier regarding the metal flashing caps. What was submitted in the application is a section of the west elevation. I don't have the full west elevation, but it looks like there's just window replacement in existing openings from the plans. So the applicant will be required to submit a west elevation at permitting. And that seven, all awnings shall use a woven textile and shall not be vinyl. Eight, that the masonry planters shall be retained and preserved. Nine, that all windows shall have trim and slanted sills reconstructed. Paired windows shall utilize a 6-inch wide wood mullion or wood-clad mullions as depicted below, and that those trim and sill details would be reviewed by staff at permitting. And then number 10, staff recommends the applicant explore knee walls in the porch openings that are not utilized for pedestrian access, just to create a little bit of a hierarchy, and I think that condition kind of exists in the garage, or I'm sorry, in the porch. But those are all of staff's conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jordan, thank you. The knee wall in the porch, help me understand that better.
Sure. So the applicants are currently proposing full open arches down to the floor.
Yes.
It looks like from this photo that there was likely, a foot or some kind of small wall that ran around the porch, which was pretty typical. It would be just as typical to not have it, but if that condition exists, we would recommend that that be kind of reinstated, and it creates a nice hierarchy for the actual human entrance.
So they're asking for three things. Certificate of appropriateness, and the second is the demolition of attached garage, but I don't see, am I missing that in your recommendations? Do you not speak to that?
We didn't include that in the recommendations.
Okay.
No.
Additional questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll move into public comment. I have one public comment card.
I'm sorry, I do have one more question, I'm sorry. If they weren't demoing the garage and proposing to build a second floor on it, the garage would be able to remain at 4.31, but the second floor, the new construction, would have to be 5 feet additional back from that for a total of 10.
Or they'd need to seek the same variance.
To be variance-free, that second floor needs to be 5 feet additional back.
Yes.
Thank you.
So because it's attached to the garage, it's not a separate demolition?
No.
Okay, I think we're ready for public comment now. Mr. Rice, on behalf of the neighbor, I believe. If you'll state your name and address for the record. And
Good
you have
evening,
3
Jack
minutes.
Rice with the law firm of Gunster Yoakley, 777 Flagler Drive, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33401. I was not previously sworn in.
You were not sworn in?
No, ma'am.
Okay, he needs to be sworn in.
I swear I will tell the truth.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I am here on behalf of Blake and Mumbai Hanley. They are the owners of the house next door, directly to the east, adjacent at 307 Central Drive. Most of the details of my objection are included in your staff reported Exhibit E. But long story short, Blake and Mumbai are supportive of the revitalization of Central Park, but not at the expense of their privacy or the enjoyment of their property. And so essentially when they were looking at the application, they were happy to see that there were no windows proposed on the massing at the second floor addition. And they requested that a condition be, they asked the applicant if they'd be agreeable to a condition saying that any openings would come back to you, and the applicant indicated they were against it. Really the concern was that essentially those openings are a staff approval, not a board approval. But because the board is really the one that is evaluating the adverse impacts of that additional massing at the second floor, we thought it would be appropriate that that decision be made by the board, because one of the variance criteria is the impact of the variance on neighboring properties. So we were glad to see that Jordan, and we need to compliment him for it, suggested a condition that requires that any openings come back to HPB. Earlier this evening, there was a bit of back and forth between Blake, myself, and the applicant. Please accept our apologies for any disruptions. It sounds like the applicant is in agreement with staff's proposed condition and that there is an intent to add windows. So I think you will see us again in about a month or so, and hopefully with a solution that's amicable for everybody involved. But my client has no objection to the variance as recommended by staff with conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I don't think so.
No.
Thank you. Would the applicant like a rebuttal of any kind? You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I mean, with respect to the public's objection to it, did want to state that because, you know, the request from the public is to not install windows in the addition to a home, we felt that it was important that we wanted to, for the purpose of being consistent with the fenestration of it and the historical charm to it, with it also being, with moving to a standard 5-foot setback, with a typical height of the building, that it was not, you know, an invasion of the privacy and just kind of standard for the way things would be built. So we do want to install windows there, and would like the board's support of it, you know, and the public's support of it. So I don't know if there's any, you know, an opinion of the windows or guidance on that you would provide to us to find something to meet up there.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into executive session.
I can start. I think it's really remarkable the effort that the applicant is willing to take on, just judging by the photographs. Good luck. And I also think it's really remarkable that they're taking currently enclosed square footage and opening it up to be more historically appropriate in the porch. We, at times, I'm sure Jordan has spoken to you, usually come with projects seeking to disrupt the historic nature of these front porches and enclose it. So I think it's really refreshing. It doesn't go unnoticed by me that you're forfeiting enclosed square footage of floor area, and I can certainly get behind justification of the variance for the second floor. I think that the windowless facade is actually, in this case, reasonable because of the support that the neighbor is willing to go on record for your variance. And that's where I stand with this application.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know, the windows are for the second floor or for the ground floor? For the second floor?
Maybe for the second floor, and the plans are not currently.
Please speak into the microphone.
They are for the second floor, yes.
Yeah, I kind of agree that, you know, given the fact that we may approve a variance, I would agree with staff, condition of approval not to put windows on that second floor.
So the way the current is written is that should the board approve the variance, no new openings can be administratively permitted, right? So like on a contributing building on secondary facades, that's a staff level review, right?
So it would have to come back to the board.
It would have to come back to the board. So hopefully that'll give
Add windows.
the applicant, the neighbor, maybe some time to work out something that they can both support, and then they can come back.
Thank you.
Right, in these tough scenarios, because it's not a primary facade and also isn't part of the original structure, I'm not endorsing that one way or another, but if natural light is kind of what you need, in a future, perhaps more of a clear story or ribbon window would be appropriate. That wouldn't disrupt the neighboring privacy. But anyway, thank you.
Are you ready for a motion of some kind?
Yeah, I can make a motion. Okay, I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number HPB 26-06 on 309 Central Drive for alterations. I believe that is ad valorem tax exception. No. So alterations and additions in accordance with standard 9 and 10 as set forth in section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of the Interior standard for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, the additional compatibility criteria set forth in Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions are included in the staff report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board grant HPB case number 26-06B, a request by Giselle Meixner of Bathers Group LLC and Eric Dempsey of Eric Dempsey's Architect LLC on behalf of La Palma Capital LLC for the construction of a two-story addition requiring a variance from Section 94-84B2E1 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted and staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that each of the criteria in Article 2nd, Section 94-38D6 of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations have been met. In addition, the granting of the variance is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The conditions are the variance shall only apply to the proposed garage addition and to mitigate future impacts of the neighboring property to the east, no new window opening shall be administratively permitted on the east facade of the garage.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. You're approved. Thank you. I do have closing remarks this evening, so the applicants are free to leave. This is more directed at staff and the board. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Before we close, I want to mention that this will be my last meeting. After 12 years on this board and having worked with 7 different preservation planners, I'll be stepping down to serve on another board. The timing is ideal in a couple of ways. First, our board is stronger than ever. We have 2 architects, 2 builders with preservation experience, a developer, an urban planner who is also assistant director for the town of Palm Beach, a past president of the Institute of Classical Architecture, and the vice president of the Preservation Foundation. Many of us live and work in the city. We're fair, consistent. We judge our projects based on the Secretary of Interior standards and the criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance. As I leave, I know you are uniquely suited to judge applications based on those standards and rely on them, along with the testimony presented as your primary means for consideration. Second, our city staff is working incredibly hard, often at the detriment of their own weekends, to process an intense volume of applications. Their staff reports are comprehensive, and they continue to find ways to improve our preservation program. Specifically to you, Jordan, I can't look at you. I'm going to get emotional. Your commitment to preservation is transformative. In a city with intense with intense development pressure, your deep knowledge of zoning and your willingness to put extra effort in are invaluable. That expertise paired with your background at the town, FEMA, and the Preservation Foundation leave those of us who live and work here extremely fortunate. And Melissa, your clear, consistent advice always keeps us on track. Thank you. I know our preservation program is in good hands. I leave you with the reminder that preservation is simply having the good sense to hold on to the things that are well designed, the things that link us to our past, and preserve the unique character of our city. Thank you. And with that, I think we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Well, I mean, I don't prepare anything to say, but I think that I should rebuttal. And I think that it's going to be, I mean, was 12 years, nine for me here, and I always look for you and all your knowledge on historic preservation. And it's going to be a very tough hole to fill now, but I guess that in between all of us, we'll try to do it. And thank you so much for 12 years of incredible support and, giving the city back. And thank you.
Thank you, Gabe.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Kristen, I don't know you very well, but in my short time, I've really come to respect you. And while I had no hand in Kristen getting nominated and becoming one of the members of the the Landmarks Preservation Commission in the town of Palm Beach, when I realized that there was going to be a vacancy for an off-island expert in the field, I immediately went and spoke to Frederic Mintner about Kristen Kellogg. First person and only person that came to my mind. No offense, Caleb. And I was thrilled to hear that she was interested, and was thrilled to hear that some of the electeds did seek Frederic and myself's a recommendation and kind of perspective on Kristen's work ethic and force of nature in preservation. And certainly is someone that practices what she preaches, as she is, as her applications have come across my desk, and I'm always impressed with her sensitive hand. So with that, I hope Jordan forgives me in reaching out to Kristen to apply for the vacancy, but I think it's going to be a really wonderful, wonderful chance for Kristen to continue to grow.
I also want to say a few words. Thank you, Kristen, because you have been with us, with the staff. Well, last year when we have so many issues with the staff and we didn't have the technical support that we have right now with Jordan and Anthony, I really appreciate your help on trying to keep the historic preservation program like marching and being able to process all the applications with the best outcome that we could at the time. So I really appreciate that. And good luck on your new. It's a win for the town.
And thank you for helping us get everything back on track. Seriously, you're just a great, you run meetings very well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
We'll miss you.
And I'll miss you. But I will be here. I live and I work in the city. But all of you and the effort you put in, like I said, it's invaluable. Thank you.
Okay, so I move the board to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, of course. Let's do that.